this is a good start from what they need to do, but now they need to crack down on players. Like, I don't even think they necessarily need to crack down, but I think that they need to implement like a skill system where, like, even if you win, if you go 0-10, you don't get LP. 0. Nothing.
Hey, welcome to the Cool Club. All right, guys, welcome to episode 3 of Hooves, Horns, and Hearsay. I'm your host, Moosey Man. This afternoon / evening, wherever you are around the world, unfortunately, my lovely co-host could not make it tonight. Miss UV Unicorn / Brandy is unable to join us tonight. And instead, in the pretty purple / pink outline, we have an even beautiful human being. I almost called you a pretty girl. It's okay. But we have almost an equally beautiful human being in MrJagerMan. Let's go. Welcome in, Jaeger. How you doing tonight, brother?
Thank you, Moosey. And I'm a very pretty girl. Thank you. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It reminds, what is that, the SpongeBob meme? He's like, am I a pretty girl? And Mr. Krabs like, you're beautiful. And then the guy's like looking at him like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But guys, welcome in. If you don't know MrJagerMan, you're gonna get to have to know him. It's ! guest. You can check him out at any time during the podcast. It looks like we already had a shout out. But for those of us that don't know you, MrJagerMan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, what you stream, and a little bit about yourself. Get real personal with it. We need to know everything right now. Do it.
I got you. So when it comes to the streaming side, I play a lot of League of Legends. I've been slowly streaming TFT. However, that has been very frustrating. But I'm mainly a support main, specifically with the cow. I'm really good at Alistar. I peaked. My biggest peak ever on League was Masters, like 2 LP. My biggest peak last season was D1, and my biggest peak this season is D4 because I've only gotten angrier.
Bro, are you washed? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
Yeah, a little bit of a wash. Mainly, actually, I haven't played for 2 patches. Alistar has been a D tier support for the entire season, except for the last 2 patches where he went from a D tier support to like a B tier, and apparently now he's like really strong. Or engaged supports are strong. Alistar is an engaged support, so he's in that upper level tier now. So maybe you'll see a climb. Who knows?
Okay. So, well, luckily, it looks like when you started out, and it seems that, well, I already knew this. For anybody that doesn't, MrJagerMan is a League streamer degenerate like myself leading up to this point, guys. And it's perfect timing, right? It's perfect because the main category that we're going to be going over is League of Legends. Everything about it, everything you could possibly imagine. How we started, the state of the game, the changing metas, the toxicity, NA, EU, worlds, tier lists. We're going to be doing it all. We're going to be covering it all. And I know that a lot of our viewers up to this point, especially the 2 communities that are going to be coming in, are definitely League. Let's say they are well accustomed to some running it down, high to low elo gameplay action, and a lot of people think they may know about League of Legends more than they do, or maybe they got some stuff to teach us tonight. I don't know. It's gonna be either one. So starting out, it looks like you covered a little bit, but getting into just specifically your League background, I want to hear all of it, Jaeger. I want to know where you started. I want to know why you started. I want to know why you decided not to like your life anymore whenever you did start, like we all did. Just tell me a little bit about your entire history. Take it away.
Yeah. Where did I start in League? Oh gosh, I was a very sad high schooler, I think.
So that's a good start. Like any bad addiction, you're kind of at a low point. You're a sad high schooler. Go ahead, go on.
Yeah, perfect. I played 3 sports in high school, and then I got like really frustrated. I went to like the weeb like club that we had, and it was pretty much all just League. It was chess and League, and I don't have the intelligence for chess. And so I got into it with a few friends to just avoid all of the other stresses in my life. And it was a lot of fun. I started out on I think it was Rammus, and then immediately went to Nidalee.
Ooh.
And that is not a champion that you go in. Now, this was back in the time where like APE was one-shotting people, right? Like,
so what season? So I don't know if you've mentioned this, but what season was this that you started?
I believe I started season 2.
Season 2. Okay.
I started season 2. I got to level 30. I started really early season 2. I got to level 30 like mid season 2, and then immediately placed in back then there was elo, right? It wasn't tiers. Immediately placed in 800 elo, which is bronze.
I didn't know. I was about to be so impressed because I don't know anything before season 5. So when you were like, I immediately placed an 800 elo, and immediately I was like, oh, and then bronze. I was like, oh no, dude. I thought you were about to be like, which is the equivalent of like platinum 1 nowadays. I was about to be like, oh my god, but immediately.
Now, hold off. By the end of the season, to be fair, when I started, I was bad. I was really bad. My brother played it. By the end of the season, I climbed from like what is probably the equivalent of like Iron 4 back then. In one season, I've never placed under golds. So I climbed up to, it was 1700, which 1800 was like diamond back then.
So, question, and this is, I cannot believe I'm already learning things this quickly. I mean, dude, I didn't start till season 5. When you say the like 1200 or 1800 or 800, so when they had the LP system back in the day, before they like had tiers and divisions and stuff, so did they not have like 100 LP to the next division, or like was there a certain like 3200 to the, like to go to like the next rank, or like how did it work? I don't even remember back in the day.
Yeah, so it was anything 900 or below was bronze.
Okay.
I think it was 950 to 950 to 1300 was silver, I believe.
Okay.
And then any like 1301 to like 1650 or 1750 was gold, and anything higher than that was platinum.
And platinum was there was no diamond back in season 2.
Exactly, no diamond.
So platinum was the highest role they had in season 1 and 2, or not the role, but the highest rank.
Yes.
I didn't even know that. How did I not know something as simple as that? So in what seasons did they finally start adopting the Diamond, Master, Challenger? Like, I know you're not going to have this information off the top of your head. If you do, I'm very impressed. But like, if you had to estimate, because I think back in season 5, I believe is when I started, they already had Master and Challenger by that point, correct?
I believe they had Challenger.
Okay.
So I'm guesstimating because this is back in 2012, right?
Okay.
It was either season 1 or season 2 that they had no diamond. It was season 2 or season 3 that they came out with diamond. And that was, I believe, about the time where they came out with like tiers. So like 0 LP, gold 4, or
okay,
whatever.
Right.
Or it was gold. The lowest tier was 5 back then, so it was silver 5, gold 5, platinum 5.
Oh, all right. Oh, yeah, I do remember that there was a 5. Why do you think they did away with 5? I'm not to cut you off or not to change subjects. I'm probably going to be doing that sporadically throughout the night, so I apologize beforehand. But why do you think they got rid of 5? Like, just because like 500 LP to go from 5 to 100 LP, 4 to 100 LP was just too much for a single rank, or what?
So I'm not exactly sure. To my knowledge, my best guess is there was a large jumble of people that would hit gold 5, plat 5, D5, and
right.
couldn't do any higher, right? Like that's where they peaked, and it's really hard to demote once you are there. So I'm assuming it had something to do with trying to break people up there, as well as trying to implement new tiers, so like Masters, Iron, Grandmasters.
Right, that makes sense. Just makes it easier in the transition Like, and like I guess with the lower amount too, like you said, if it takes off the 5 rank of every rank, it allows for that, you know, like you said, the Masters, Grandmasters tiers, because you got to put them somewhere, right? Like adding all of those different elos with all 5 levels would be like, it would be overkill, don't you think? Is that why they did that?
So I think so, and I think that the only reason why they added Masters and Grandmasters was because back then, in order to get, so there was a point in time where you were Diamond 1 trying to go into Challenger. You would be gaining from Diamond 1 0 LP to Diamond 1 100 LP anywhere between 3 and 0 LP per win.
Really?
And it had nothing to do with MMR. It was that they could not allow anybody higher to get into Challenger.
Yeah, okay, I see. And that was probably back in, what, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, or was that even before that?
It might have been 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that.
Gotcha. So you started out Rammus Nidalee back in Season 2, so you immediately gravitated, and this is jungle, I'm assuming, correct? I mean, were those champions played in jungle, or they played in different roles?
Nidalee was mid, Rammus was jungle. But
Okay.
This was back when this was back when League was so, like, beta. It was brand new that there was a sole jungler meta.
So
Like,
wait, it used to be like multiple people would take jungle experience?
It used to be that nobody, or low elo players like me, would go 2 top lane, 1 mid, 2 bot lane, and no jungler.
Oh, no pure jungler like throughout the game.
Exactly.
Oh, so jungle XP used to like just be who we want to get fed, how we want to rotate, and who wants to take the camps during the process.
Yeah.
Huh.
And Dragon used to give 200 gold to every player rather than any buffs. Yep.
Right. Well, that they didn't change it for the buffs until probably season 7, 8-ish. Like, I don't think the dragon types came around. Well, no. I misspoke. The dragons gave generic buffs, but not specific buffs when they became labeled as like different dragons until like season 8 or something like that, I believe. Season 8 or 9? I don't know. Maybe even before that. But so season 2... that's how, and I remember, like, dude, you remember all of the graphics and the map layout, like, and there's going to be so many things that we'll probably talk about as far as, like, items that died out, items that you missed that used to build, and I'm learning along with you, chat, so, like, Jaeger's played for about 4 more years than I have, and obviously he's a higher elo, so we are I'm learning along with you guys, I'm right there with you, so I'm going to be asking him questions on your behalf, and we're all just going to be along for the ride, so, I mean, I remember... probably back in season 5, like they didn't change the map until about season 5, so you were beta map, beta champs, beta skills, beta strats, like I don't know, that's crazy. I mean, what would you say, and like not to rush into like season 4 or 5 that quickly, but would you say the biggest thing, I've mentioned this before, that the map change was probably one of the bigger incentives that attracted so many more people to the game? Maybe I'm off base on that, but from what you saw between like season 2 and 5 when I started, I know that there's a much larger player base, and that's when the game experienced the most growth during that time frame. What would you say was the most contributing factor of that?
Yeah, so I mean, I did. If you are interested at all, or
I'm interested in everything, baby. Talk to me.
I just linked you. I linked you a 60-second map awareness song. It's a League of Legends. It showed the old map and one of the biggest problems that there was.
Okay,
anyway.
That's perfect. Is it a good segue for you to introduce it, or do you want to go ahead and watch it now?
Sure, let's watch it now.
Okay, that's perfect. And anytime during out this process, brother, you want to send me something like that, that's what I got the different overlays for. So guys, you see the TV above us that has the hooves, horns, and hearsay? That's got the little logo on it. Yes, I understand. It looks cool, but it's not just for cool purposes. It's also got functionality, because when I do this, bam, it pops out, and now we're watching the TV together, guys. So this is going to be a 60 second. Well, actually, let me go ahead and cancel my other music real quick. And let's get this started. So it's a map awareness in the early seasons. Let's check it out.
Have you noticed that big box down at the bottom of your screen? I'll try to make the simple enemies red and allies green. But you get your butt kicked if you don't look before you play. Like pushing mid when they're all MIA. Another thing to look for is that skilled cold teleport, cause since that will show up just before you take down their support. Pantheon, Twisted Fate, and Shen also have the ability to wind up in your space without a chance to flee. Now there's many tools that you can use to beat the fog of war, like Ashes, Hawkshot, Clairvoyance, or simply play some more. Keep an eye out for those junglers, cause the Warwick's not too kind, and Shock the Switch and even invisibility will gank you from behind.
This is
If
great.
all five are missing, then they're probably a Baron, but I wouldn't try to ninja cause they don't look like they're sharing. Now there's only one more caution, and I'm going to assume that if it happens, you rage quit and walk out of the room.
Oh, dude, I rage quit regardless of that. Come on now.
Never underestimate the power of the Scout's cold.
Hey, I like that. Keep those coming. I like that. So, and I guarantee you, not only was that song like a prank, but like I bet in some capacity back then, early, that was like almost like an educational video for some people. It's like, oh, that's how this works. That's crazy
for sure. And so there was also Twisted Fate. 100%. His ultimate had no range, so he could go anywhere on the map. Same with Shen, which I think is still the same. Same with Pantheon ult. 100% range. He could gank from bot lane to top lane.
Wait, there was no range limitations on his ultimate?
It was global, yeah.
That's crazy. What other gold
There was
were
no
there?
stealth.
Probably. So you said TF had. Well, TF has global. I cannot believe I almost asked that, but no, he doesn't have global. He has restrictions that get bigger and bigger every time. I've never played TF once in my life, but he does have limitations and restrictions to his ultimate range in level 2 and 3, right?
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. So it gets bigger, but pretty much at level 3, he can go from the fountain to probably one of the tier 1 towers or something, right?
In that general, yeah. About.
Yeah. So okay. When you started and you went Nidalee Rammus, obviously playing Rammus in the jungle, quote unquote jungle, and Nidalee in the mid lane, which is a high skill cap champion. That's actually pretty impressive that you played. I can't master those champions. Nidalee, Lulu, Elise. God, who else is there? The champions that all have just like 7 technical abilities and ultimate that alternates between the 6 abilities, but that's what you started with? Like, who told you to do that? Why was that your go-to right away?
So I started Rammus because I really liked just the concept. It didn't require anything. I played Rammus for up until like level 25 or whatever, and then again, like I was saying, as my brother played the game with me, there's like a 5-year gap though in age, so he was a lot older. He had a lot older friends. When I started playing Nidalee, they were there with my first game, and they would count in all chat every single spear I missed.
That's what assholes. Come on,
bro. So that was I got really. By the end of it though, they were totally like harassing me. They were like huge bullies. But by the end of it, I got really good because it was embarrassing and frustrating to just have people all chat every time. Like they would be in like a 2-stack, 3-stack, and they would get the random involved and like start having them counting. I was very bad at Nidalee, and that was very bad to transition into ranked. And that's where I started in bronze, was because I picked up a champion 5 levels before I could go into ranked, immediately went into ranked with a champion I wasn't good at. Bad times happened.
Yeah, so when you started ranked, okay, so me personally, and I'll tell you the saga of how much of a wuss I was. When I started in season 5, I actually, and well, this is a question for you as well, after kind of just saying the basis of what I'm about to say, is that I was a console player for so long. Like, I never touched a computer game. I think the last computer game before League of Legends that I actually played was Counter-Strike, the original, like way back in middle school. And when I say way back in middle school, chat, I'm talking legit 20 years ago, like the first ever Counter-Strike. And besides that, I hadn't really played a computer game. Like, I played, I think, a little bit of StarCraft, the original as well, when those were two, like, the biggest computer games out. But playing on, like, a remote control on a console, like, and then stepping over to like a keyboard and mouse and having League be the first game that you do that with, it was so hard. And I'm assuming since you were able to play a champion like Nidalee, or you were able to, you know, pick the game up a lot faster, being able to CS or being able to lane, which I was terrified to do anything but support, you pretty much had probably already played a lot of computer games leading up to League of Legends, right?
So League of Legends was my first computer game ever, next to an old game called Well of Souls that was probably one of the first video games, first PC games to exist.
So exactly like me. So you picked up PC games basically because of League of Legends.
Yes.
Wow,
100%.
I would have assumed because you're much better than me, so I've got to automatically assume that, right? It couldn't be any other reason, you know, it couldn't be my boomer hands, my boomer brains, or nothing like that. It has to be because you played a whole lot of computer games beforehand, so I'm gonna go ahead and just affirm that with myself. You're welcome. But no, like, you still had never, that really was your first computer game. What was the transition for you? How did you get used to maneuvering with a keyboard, with the mouse? Like, what was the whole process?
So it was so weird. Here's the process of how I did it. And a lot of people don't go into ranked for a long time, right? Like, they get level 30 and they just never go into ranked.
Right.
My brother bought me my first PC, and this was a PC that was getting 5 to 10 FPS in League of Legends. Like, it was a Dell old thing, right?
5 to 10. Are you being sarcastic or for real?
No, so 5 to 10 would be in team fights, and I would get 19 to 25 just playing the game.
Okay. So you had the special like I did for the longest time. I think up until 2 years ago, before I started streaming, I literally would only function on like maybe 25 to 30 when it wasn't team fighting, and it would drop down to like 10 to 15 during like a full-fledged team fight. So man, I didn't realize that we have so many similarities in that. Like, I had to engage, throw all my abilities, and run away. I'm not sure how you went around navigating the game, but that's pretty much how I functioned for almost 4 years.
Yeah, I never engaged. But here's the thing. My brother bought me that PC, and he allowed me to play, and he coaxed my parents into letting me play because I was young at the time or whatever, and he got me my first what's it called? It was the digital collector's pack, or the physical collector's pack, or whatever, right? He got me that, and the requirement was I needed to be able to I needed to play 200 games with bots before I could ever play regular League.
Really?
And this was back before introduction bots. Like, beginner intros is all I had. Max, and they were worse back then.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So how did you have to, like, because of your computer restrictions, have to manipulate and change your gameplay as you learned more about the game, as you learned more about the champions? Like, how did you evolve knowing that, hey, I'm getting better now, I can be more useful, especially with my CPU that's, you know, restricting me to only be able to do X, Y, Z without it all freezing? Like, how did you evolve your game just because of that, that restriction you had to deal with?
Yeah, so I didn't ever play teamfight champions. Like, the only teamfight champion I would play would be Master Yi. I would throw spears at, like, with Nidalee from 2 maps away, and these spears back then, Nidalee had a much better AP ratio back then.
Okay.
So she almost never went into Cougar stance except to run away. So I would throw spears from 2 maps away, and then I would play Master Yi, where I would only have to click 1 button after I realized that I wasn't any good at skill shots. And that was about it. Like, I adjusted. I played the champions that I could play with, like, the bare minimum of having to function, right? Like, if I had to see a tower shot take, like, individual frames to hit me, I knew that I couldn't play the game.
The slow-mo tower shots, just like the pixelation, just like, oh god, it's like, it's literally slow-mo and you're just like, no, know. Every time you even get close to diving or getting in contact, mine was never that bad. So I will say, it sounds like yours was a little bit rougher than mine. Because mine, 20 to 25, you can function kind of on that. If it dips below that, you're in trouble. But maybe 30 on a good day, and I thought that I had issues with that. But dude, you sounds like you had it even worse. Mine was an all-in-one Dell computer, though. Do you remember what you were functioning on? Like, so it was a laptop, you said?
No, it was a Dell computer. It was one of those super skinny Dell computers.
Oh.
And then I eventually upgraded to a fat Dell computer. But yeah, it was one of those like super bare bones, like those floppy disk computers. Like they struggled on the floppy disks.
Yeah.
That was what I had.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. So then, like, as the seasons went on, as you went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, I'm sure it's super hard, and I'm not saying like exact science-wise, but do you remember as you kept playing and as you improved and as you learned the game, how quickly did you grow and climb? How many champions did you end up picking up, or how many different times did you try out new roles? Kind of lead us through what you kind of saw as your journey per se.
Yeah, so after I got into ranked and I dropped Nidalee, I went to Master Yi, I believe. Played Master Yi for a while, and while he was like realized that AP mid lane Yi was permabanned in the top elo, but nobody knew
so crazy.
that. Yeah, this is back when you had 3 bans rather than 5,
right?
And it was all first pick. First pick got to ban everything.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes Master Yi would get through, so I could play Master Yi a lot. And then I upgraded PCs, and I thought I was so cool.
And this was season
Riot changed.
3. This was season 3 or 4, or what was it?
This was, by this time, this is like very, very end of season 2.
Oh, so it was, you got your upgrade pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, I played about 9 months of League before I got my first upgrade.
Okay.
And my first upgrade got me 32 FPS maximum, but it never ever dropped below 10, and that was just the most significant thing that I could have ever felt. And so I was like, I felt so strong. I felt absolutely insane. Riot got their new servers, so I wasn't playing on 115 ping. I was playing on like 60.
Oh, that's huge too. So both of those upgrades kind of hit around the same time for you.
Around the same time, so my like ego brain, I stopped being capped in like 600 to 700 elo, and so I was slowly climbing. I was like, I'm gonna pick up, I think it was Riven or something.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick up it was a Kali. I didn't pick up Riven
pre-rework
for
Akali. She's only been reworked once again too, by the way. The recent one is the only one she's ever had, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
yeah, so I picked up Akali and Katarina. Pre-rework Akali and Katarina. And I went from 800 LP to 1650 in a month and a half between my upgrade, and 1650 was like upper end gold.
Right.
And so I never ended a season not gold, but I climbed like 1,000 LP almost, or I guess it's elo back then, in like a month and a half.
Yeah, instantly, because of the functionality upgrades. Yeah. Okay.
And switching roles. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then season 3 hit, you were able to use that base MMR to be able to reset. And then by the end of season 3, what were you playing and where were you at?
Season 3, I might have stayed gold, but I think I ended plat 5.
And then what were you playing primarily at that time?
Riven and Akali.
And was Riven as technical as she is now as well?
Yes.
So what gravitated you towards, and were you playing Akali and Riven in the top lane, or were you rotating between mid and top, or what were you doing with it?
So back then, if you played Akali mid lane, you were a troll. But it was slowly getting past that. So I started in the top lane, played a lot of top lane, back then also like Tryndamere mid was pretty good.
Right.
Not AP, but just regular, and he would take the chickens all the time, every chance you got.
I can see that.
They weren't chickens back then. They were like little ghosty boys.
Really?
Anyway.
Were they? Okay, so that's another question. I have so many questions. So how many times did the jungle camps get reworked before the map got reworked?
I don't know that answer, but I do know that the jungles used to be, I think it was, I could just be making stuff up, but like big chicken for where Gromp was, or maybe it was two big chickens.
I think it was two of them. I think that I remember that too back in the day too. Yeah. Okay.
I think it was two big chickens where Krugs were. There was no Gromp or something like that. There was Ghosty Boys for Raptors. Blue and red buff stayed the same. Dragon was very different because of the benefits that it got. And then Baron, back in the beginning of my days, Blitzcrank could hook Baron out of the pit and Poppy could run it into a wall.
Wait, you could displace the Baron?
Yup.
Wait, that is so broken. Could you do the same thing to Dragon?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
But you could to Baron specifically.
Yes.
I am literally, I guess what the kids say, today years old, that I knew that. I had no fucking clue that you could displace Baron. That is so broken.
Yeah, it was bad, bro.
But what would it look like? Because the Baron is supposed to be in the water, like supposed to be the sea creature. If you displace him, what did he look like on land over the wall?
It was pretty funny. There was no shadow or anything. It was just like, it almost looked like a 2D worm, in my opinion.
It looked like it glitched, probably. It probably didn't look like it belonged whatsoever.
Yup. And if you go all the way back into beta, you could actually do that and pull it all the way into well. They changed that before I was a player, but like, you could pull it all the way into your well.
I had no idea. That's actually funny. So how long was that a thing before you would probably have to say they would hotfix that, right? Or did they allow that to be a thing?
I don't remember. Now realize back in 2012, I was 13? I was young. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's so insane. I never knew that. That is so funny. So, okay. So then you got to that point in season 3. When did you say you actually hit your stride? Where I know that you've been hovering between like high diamond and high platinum. When would you say that you were like, what was the moment that you're like, aha, I got what I want to do. I know my role. I know what I'm going to be able to like climb the highest in. Where was that aha moment, and what season do you think that happened in?
Probably 2 years ago.
So back in season 8-ish, 9-ish. Okay.
What season is it right now?
It's 11, correct? Or is it 12? Am I a dumbass? Hold on. Yeah, it's 12. It is 12. Okay. So back in season 10.
I think like season 10 is about where I picked up Alistar. Maybe early season 11. Yeah, no. I picked up Alistar late season 10. I had hovered between gold and plat for the entirety, like from season 2 to season 10-ish. Just permanently ish, give or take, just because I would play. There were seasons where I would play 10 games and it was just my 10 placements. So I would be like gold 5, gold 4. And then there were seasons where I would play like 100 games and I would be like plat 5, and then I would cap and I would stop playing. But season 10 is when I started playing. I played like 600 games, and that's where I actually started doing well.
Right, and what a lot of people don't realize is that has to be pretty much the process. A lot of people think that, oh, hey, I'm just going to start playing a champion, I'm going to play a different role, and all of a sudden in 100 to 200 games, I'm going to climb like a whole division or whatever. People really don't get that no matter how good you are or how good you become or the learning process, it takes anybody time. You have to grind in that extra couple hundred games, or sometimes the extra 500 games, or the extra whole season 1000 games if you play League of Legends that long. And it really does. It's a process, man. And I think a lot of people are not necessarily thinking the payout's quick and it should be easy, but it sounds like it's exactly on par with what a lot of people do. Exactly what you did is what I did one season. I was like, hey, I'm gonna play something different. I'm gonna put a good 400 to 500 games in this role and these couple of champions, and boom. Right? So it really sounds like that's when you hit your stride. But prior to season 10, I'm sure that you, between 5 and 10, I know that we skip forward a lot in the process, but in those couple of, like, I guess in those 4 or 5 seasons in between that time, where did you change a couple of roles? Did you kind of stay on jungle and just change your champions around a little bit? What did you see yourself doing in the period of, like, say, high gold to low platinum and then finally hitting your stride in season 10?
So I will disagree partially with what you said about climbing. However, I'll go back to the question. I would say I played a different champion. Like, my most played champion is Syndra. I would play a different champion every season and just play it until I hit where I wanted to, whether that was gold, platinum, wherever. I played a lot of Hecarim, Zac in the jungle. I played a lot of Jackson, Garen in the top lane. I played Syndra, LeBlanc, old Akali in the mid lane. I played a lot of Riven in the top lane. And then in the AD carry, I played Tristana and I played Vayne. And I never played support because I always thought that was just the sissiest role. It was the easiest, dumbest role in the whole planet. And then I played it once and I was like, dang, I really like being verbally assaulted by this super pretentious AD carry player.
It's the best, dude. So not only did you unlock your best role, but then physical bereavement actually made you better. It fed into your power. Like, it sounds like, I mean, you know, hey, some people are into that. More power to you, bro. So Soraka is the first support that you picked up. Like, seriously.
Soraka?
Yeah.
No.
So who was?
I think the first support I played Nautilus a little bit, and then I was like, I don't know. I played Nautilus and Blitzcrank in Gold 1 for a little bit, and I was like, this is great, and I feel like I feel like I can really impact the lane here because I know what I'm doing, but
right,
I can't land hooks. In the same right where I couldn't land spears back in season 2, I can't land hooks. I never learned that. So I switched to Alistar, and things clicked.
What was it specifically about Alistar that you liked the most as compared to, like, Blitz, Nautilus, any of the AP mages, anything else? Like, what was it for you? So
back then was when roaming supports were huge, right? Enchanters weren't even a thing. If you were an enchanter, you were a troll. Alistar was not very played at the time. He was just a hyper roamer, right? Like, you would level 2 roam to top lane and never go back bot lane. It was so strong. Back then, and I also really liked that I felt impactful. I could roam, I could engage, but I didn't need to rely on, like, as a Blitzcrank, I had to rely on both landing my hooks and then making sure my teammates would engage with me after I landed my hooks.
Right.
Otherwise, I just inted myself, or I inted my teammate by pulling a Scion into them and just ruining their life.
What you're saying is you didn't enjoy that. You didn't enjoy it because that's the best part. Hooking the wrong person and having it lose the team fight automatically, that was the best. I was a filthy Blitzcrank one trick for the longest time. So trust me, that's chef's kiss right there, man. That's my pleasure.
Dude, it was so good. The one time that I truly felt like powerful in a game was when I typed in this. I was toxic back then. I typed in, there was this LeBlanc, or it was Syndra. It was not LeBlanc. There was a Syndra player that just was like super good, super strong, doing really well, but just the worst attitude, worst person on the planet. And I was like, you know what? Beg me to not hook this. I think it was Scion.
Oh, so you would ultimate him and be like, you better be nice to me right now, or I'm gonna fucking do something you're not gonna like. Dude, I mean, hey, I'll tell you what, I think everybody, I don't know, not everybody, okay, let's just put it this way. I'm very similar in your regard because the earlier in the seasons or the earlier you play this game, the more toxic you are, and you get a little bit better, I think, over time, to the point where if you evolve into a pretty good, decent person in League of Legends, eventually, either that or you just give up on carrying, or you give up on ranking, or you just put on a fake sad face inside but a smile on the outside, and you don't become toxic anymore. I don't know, but I can kind of, it hurts my feelings that I can relate to you a little bit, because back in the first couple of early seasons, sounds like you said as well, like, hey, I used to, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna either deny or confirm that I would say, hey man, you better apologize to me or I'm running it down. Like, I would give those ultimatums too, man. Like, you better do or say or whatever this, and this, or you're not gonna like the consequence. But, you know, we're reformed.
I was an edgy high schooler, bro. I was an edgy high schooler, and I was like, back then, I actually, like, this evolved me as a person. League of Legends gave me the ultimatum I needed to be a human.
Made you the man that you are today. League of Legends,
exactly.
Thank you. Like, I thought we were just talking about a video game. We're talking about like life changing and altering experiences in this podcast. I didn't know that it was that deep. All right.
For sure, man. Back then I was like, freaking people deserve, if they are mean, I'm gonna be mean back, right? They get what they get if they're being rude. And, you know, I evolved, and I was like, you know what? Everyone has bad days. You should take the higher road. And that's where I'm at now, kind of.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Back then,
We'll get to toxicity, trust me. Not to cut you off, but we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the game state, the community, all that good stuff. But we are now sitting at the Alistar is what your go-to. So kind of just like what your current meta is right now as well. And we'll talk about the meta, but like for you personally, is that kind of what you've sat at for a while? Do you play at anything other than Alistar when you're tryharding nowadays? I know that you kind of go to the jungle once in a while in our mid lane. I've seen you play a lot recently here and there. Like, kind of what's the current, what do you like to do just this season alone? Ranked, normals, what do you like to play? Like, what do you see yourself kind of falling at in the current state of time after knowing a little bit about your journey so far?
Following my journey, this season has been a lot of very salty upsettedness. That Alistar and pretty much any engaged support has been so poorly, so bad, this season.
Yeah.
But if I really wanted to climb, I would throw like an Alistar. If I really wanted to climb, I would climb up to like Plat 3.
Mm-hmm.
I would go 80 carry or jungle. Something that I could really impact the world with.
The world?
Then,
you mean the game? What are you talking about,
nope,
bro?
No, I'm
Ramus out here fucking donating to the Red Cross and like doing charity events and stuff. My jungle is changing the world, guys.
Better. I'm changing the world. I'm making people better, one toxic player at a time.
Okay. All right. Fair.
So I would do that, and then if I wanted to climb any higher, because I know my progression as a player is macro. My micro ability is the equivalent of like a Plat 4 like dog. Like if they put me up in a 1v1 against pretty much anybody, I would struggle.
Right.
But my macro is what I'm really good at. So if I wanted to climb, if I wanted to sit here and just play game after game, and I did for a little while at the season, and I did up until I hit my D4 peak, or D4 current in this season, I would play Alistar. I played a lot of Leona and Nautilus to climb. But now I think that Alistar is in a usable spot to where I feel confident that I could climb with him back up to low mid diamond.
Okay. All right. And that's where we're sitting at. And right now in the meta, especially because they changed the rank, the MMR a little bit, where like I know that because I had like 5 accounts between Gold 1 and Gold 4 last season, that Gold 1 was somewhere around like top I think 21%, 22%, something like that. But they've actually made it harder to climb. So like gold ones, I think right now are sitting at like top 15 or 14%, which is so crazy to think about, that an elo that low is like that high of a percentile within the community. A little bit about myself, not to make this, not to go through the exact same arc, but mine's a little bit more clear cut since I only played since season 5. A little bit like you, I already mentioned that I had an all-in-one computer that I had good ping. I think the ping was always between like 45 and 60, even back in season 5 and 6. But my frames were, sitting between 20 and 30, and that's what really got me started with support champions, right? I was like, hey, I'm gonna play support because I don't know the game. I know a lot of people start at support, so they don't have to worry about CSing. They don't have to worry about like trading. They don't have to worry about getting gold and carrying. And I think that's what helped me, because I one-tricked again a filthy blitzcrank player, and just learned what all the champions did. I learned, what all the combinations of who did what and who played off each other. And I think it's really good to play support, in my opinion, from a first role perspective, is because you get to like look around the map when not a lot's going on, or when you're running back to lane, or when you're warding. You're able to kind of get the macro rotations down. Like, this is before you even have to worry about the micro side of things. And I think that's what really developed me into the kind of same player that you're talking about. I'm good at macro as opposed to micro, not only because me and you share the experience of not being able to micro too well with our computer restrictions in the early processes of learning the game, but then also, having the strength of, if I can't, minutely outmaneuver, out technique, or out skill cap in these 1v1 situations, I'm definitely going to learn how to be effective and help my team and carry in other ways, right? So I played support for the longest time. Then I played other supports like Nautilus, Thresh, all the hook-based champions like you mentioned. I think I started my first season. I think that I didn't even play ranked until the end of the season. I played 10 games just to place to see, kind of like, I felt like SpongeBob, right? Have you ever seen that episode of SpongeBob walks into the "How tough are you" bar, and he's like, dude, how tough are you? And I'm just like, I'm lifting or I'm opening the ketchup bottle or whatever he does to act how tough he is, because he's so intimidated by everybody else. I think there's memes out there too. Like, my first game of ranked is him like walking into the bar and all the tough guys are around him. I didn't probably try CSing until like my second season, where I tried ADC and figured out I was awful at it, so I switched over and went back to support. Then I played a lot of bot games to learn how to CS and became a top laner. Back in season 6 or 7, I played mostly top lane. I think I peaked out at Diamond 4 for literally 2 days, and my strategy would be, Jaeger, I would run in with a tank, I'd engage, I'd use all my abilities, and I'd run away hoping I would live. Like, 9 times out of 10, I'm dying in those situations, right? Like, but I'm running away, and then if my computer would allow me to even see what the hell was going on, I would try to go back in with my next rotation and 100% die during that second rotation. But if I used the right macro, I would, help win the team fight, just because I picked the right time and the right place to go in, right? So I fell back down to Platinum 2 in like a day and a half. I peaked out, I think that season, Platinum 3. I think I ended Platinum 3, but that was my peak for like maybe a couple of days. I switched over to jungle back in season 9-ish, and that's when I started streaming, I believe at the end of season 9, beginning of season 10. The highest I ever got was like low platinum, Platinum 4, Platinum 3 at the highest, I believe. Played a lot of champions. This is when Graves was strong. Then I really just became like learning the game as jungling, like Hecarim, Jax, Jarvan, Graves, Amumu. God, I mean, the list goes on and on now how many champions I can play in the jungle. And then this season I switched over to ADC, and with Brandy, of course, the pretty pink, the pretty purple border you have, where she's supposed to be. For you guys don't know, she started the game this season, became a support, and then I've been learning ADC. So I'll tell you what, I don't understand how people can play ADC, stick with ADC, and continue to play that role, because it is so fucking miserable. You literally can get one shot by any laner or jungler that gets ahead, no matter who you are. Like, unless it's the 0-20 bot lane special, where you get that strong, where you can have some durability to live in those situations, or if you're like playing Ezreal, where you can escape. You know what I mean? It's kind of nuts, but just kind of a little breakdown of like what my little arc was in comparison. And it is crazy to see that you've been playing so long. a lot of people, I mean, what would you say as far as the timeline too? So you started season 2, I started 5, and we're now sitting at season 12. As the game has grown and as you've seen the popularity just skyrocket, it might have kind of leveled out in the last couple of years, but what were the biggest things that you saw, like, as like, wow, I'm playing the most popular game in the world, wow, there's worlds that millions of people tune in. I mean, where did you kind of see just the overall feel of the game and the popularity as it grew kind of transfer in how you saw the game, how you spent your time on the game, or maybe even your life situations allowed you to spend more or less time on the game? Kind of how do you see that whole process evolving for League of Legends in general?
Yeah, so League of Legends is definitely evolving, or has definitely evolved throughout the years. I'm starting to see a lot of power creep that's getting into the League of Legends sphere, which is obviously going to happen with if you play a game long enough. You're going to get certain champions that were original, like Nasus, Alistar, just get outclassed by the power creep of the 18 different passives, Qs, Ws, whatever. So that is a big problem that I've seen, but for the most part, it's really weird because I've played for a really long time, but there were 5-6 seasons where I only played 10 games. I only played my placements to get to get gold 4, gold 5, and then I never played again. I went and lived my life in like a national park or stuff like that. Yeah. So it's really weird because I've seen the game evolve and I've seen it change and I've seen it grow. It probably was peak a while, like it probably peaked like season 8 or something, because ever since then every champion that comes out has to be stronger, more fun, more things to do with it, harder, and it's just because they're running out of ideas. You can only make so many basic champions, so it's seeming like it's kind of hit its peak a little bit past, and now it's just trying to go for as long as it can. I don't know if that's necessarily what it's going to be, or how League will grow to adapt to that and make the map and all of the interactions like kind of grow into the new champions, but I don't know.
So as the league, as the game, not just, and we'll get into different leagues as well at some point during this conversation, but in general, as the game has evolved, where the dragons have changed and they stack with a specific ability, or during like the vision and blast cone changes, or during certain metas where assassins are strong, or bruises are strong, or tanks are strong, kind of what has been your favorite or least favorite changes overall, whether it be item changes or champion meta changes, or just kind of how the state of the game in general has been, regardless of the community and the toxicity of all that. So that aside, what's kind of been your favorite and least favorite as the years have gone on?
I don't know. I feel like I've been against change up until like the last 2 years, where I've realized that it has to change and adapt and grow, or it's gonna die out, because like it'll eventually get to a point where like the map and what's going on in the game is so basic compared to champions that are soon gonna have like 20 interactions that they have to do. But like up until these last like 2 seasons, I've been hyper against any form of change in League. Like every single thing, they had to drag me kicking, screaming, and crying about how the game is going to be permanently altered and horrible and garbage. They got rid of freaking, like way back in the day, Warmogs and Atma's Impaler, where you got AD based on the amount of health you had, and like the gold per second items. They got rid of all of that. They changed the jungle completely, dragons, everything. I was like, this is terrible. But now I'm starting to see it has to, or it won't ever grow. Like, it will eventually die out if the game doesn't grow with the champions they're creating.
Yeah, and I mean, we know, from the business perspective, there's all of the memes, there's all of the Reddit posts, there's always, hey, don't worry about the balance team, Riot's gonna release some more Lux skins, everything's gonna be K, or like, how they have to release champions that are so overtuned and overbuilt, so the champions get purchased, the new skins get bought. We could look at, and there's 100 ways to analyze, well, maybe they're not compensating their staff, they don't have enough people, they don't know what they're doing, they're trying to have a financial incentive. There's just so many things that I know can change like the state of the game, or how the champions operate, or the community, or whatever you're focusing on at the time that you're speaking on it. But I know exactly how you're saying is how I felt with the changes in the game up until recently as well. I think the changes on the vision and blast cones were not too extreme. I think they were very, very needed for just a lot of different functionality, mobility in the game, being able to, I guess, have not just vision and vision plants and your vision score be affected by wards, but vision plants weren't a thing until now, but it just really changes because the macro of what you spoke about earlier, having the ability to have so many different dynamics and positioning and vision and know-how of enemy, where they are in the map, where they could possibly be rotating. I think that was a great change. I think the dragons were a great change. But even then, what do you think it is about maybe back with a lot of players, including myself and you, that was adverse to change until just recently? Is it because the game was so, I guess, similar throughout season 5, 6, 7, 8 that we didn't want a change? Or is it because we consider the state of the game at that time the peak pinnacle of what League of Legends was, and we were afraid that it was going to change for the worse? Or what would you say?
So I have a few different thoughts on that, and I think it's going to start with back then. So like, if you look at the champions, prior to like 10, 15, 20 champions ago, which is pretty much this season and last season, they were all very similar. Like, the most complicated champion is was Azir for the longest time, and that was about it. And so when they changed when they changed the map, when they made big changes like this, we were like, wait, this game is totally like, you can tweak the champions like damage and all of this stuff, but the game makes sense. It's balanced. It's good. But like, as they start implementing, and you have to realize from a business standpoint, these champions are in the works probably a year, maybe longer, before you even see that. So they have to see that and make the season grow. But like, now that the champions are so complicated, like, we're starting to realize that there are so many things that you have to consider with champions that, like, if the map was as simple as lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, dragon, and baron back when it used to be, like, certain champions would just take over the map. Certain, like, you wouldn't be able to outplay. If you wanted to, like, have a wide variety of champions, you wouldn't be able to outplay it because certain abilities would just be too strong. So they have to adapt. I think people are starting to see that, but probably from season 4 to season 8 or 9, maybe, 8 or 9, it's been like, we're in a great spot. We're okay. And now, like, people will be like, League of Legends was best in season 4, but that's when it was like, it made the most sense. But as you can't just static your game out, you have to continue growing.
Yeah, and I will say, not even anything, kind of maybe a little bit of a parallel, but I'll remember back, because they used to, and correct me if I'm wrong, were you able to solo duo queue wasn't the only queue, right? Back in like 7 and 8, weren't you able to queue up as a 5-man in ranked, or was it only 4?
I think I think it's only been solo duo, and then they came out with flex, where you could have unlimited amount, and then they said no 4 stacks. But there was also 3v3s in Twisted Treeline.
I do remember Twisted Treeline was never my jam, and I know some people that'll die at the stake, say bring it back or re-riot, like it would just solve League of Legends, but I wasn't ever a big fan. So back in the day, though, when I remember the classic videos of, I guess those probably was playing Norms, right? But I remember like Cutie Pie and Dyrus and Double Lift and I Will Dominate, like everybody making videos all the time with each other having fun. I feel like not only was the game in a good place, but the big names that were the influencers, that were the YouTubers, that were the streamers, I think that was right around where you had, you know, the very recognizable, relatable pros that were so entertaining, they were so good at the game, and then they also created such good content, which I think brought a lot of people over. Like, I watched YouTube videos of I'm a Cutie Pie, I think before I even played League, and that's what inspired me to play League, and then I went from there, right? So I think that was also a big part of, not just for North America, because LCS was what I'm referring to with all of those individuals, but I think that was a big time too, where it just seemed, because the people that were bigger names and because the pros and because North America wasn't as well known, we've always been bad as opposed to like the rest of the world, right? But the LCS I felt like was so entertaining to watch with those individuals that were leading the way and all the content that was being created around the game. It just seemed like it was a much better time to see not only yourself but others enjoying the game as well, which caused so much more fun, if that makes sense. It seems like we've lost a bit of that spark, a bit of that edge. And why do you think that is? And do you feel the same way too?
Yeah, I can tell you 100% what happened. I will die on this hill with anybody who argues with me, ever. Back when players, you used to like your team because you liked your player. That is when people had the most fun and loved the game the most. You had the TSM house, right? The whole corporation, a whole like YouTube series of knowing the players. You had every single player from every single team streaming, right? Dyrus, Reginald, like Hotshot GG. You had all of these players that would stream their scrims. They would stream their gameplay, they would stream their solo queue, they would stream everything. But ultimately it died because solo or pro players are toxic and they became a liability to their corporations. They would see that double lift on CLG or TSM was too toxic in solo queue, and so people would not like that corporation because double lift flamed some person in solo queue or whatever, or like Dyrus ran it down or something like that. And so they were like, all right, if you're a pro player, you don't stream anymore. In fact, it's in your contract that you can't stream anymore. You are our brand.
Wow.
And the faces of League of Legends died off. You look at the League of Legends streamers, they don't exist in professional play anymore, especially like even T1. It was a huge deal when T1 got sponsored by T1 because players could, like, there was a player on a team that had a personality that was part of the corporation. It died in a year.
Yeah. And do you think a lot of people will kind of criticize NA for the way that the organizations have been ran, how basically so much money has came into the sponsorships, into the organizations, the liabilities, the changes, and what you just mentioned, the ability to stream or the ability for people to kind of more or less have that, you know, kind of shit-talking edge or that arrogant edge, or, you know, I think that because of the sponsorships, in my opinion, that they weren't really allowed to have, it wasn't necessarily controversy. I'm sure a lot of it was just, you know, competitive smack talking just to generate hype, to generate those rivalries. I mean, when's the last time you've heard of hyped rivalries in LCS? Like, I can't remember. I can't remember the double lift versus Sneaky. I can't remember the Bjergsen versus Jensen, even though they weren't really toxic to each other. You know, people play that up. They would kind of smack talk once in a while. Like, that's kind of gone in a way. Like, Fudge has kind of brought it back a little bit this year and kind of given a little bit of competitive spirit. It's changed. I think it went away for a long time, and then Riot or LCS in general realized that that was creating so much interest within the esport that it's brought back a little bit, but only to a certain extent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know that there are a bunch of players that were like player specific fans. TSM, Dyrus, specific fans, as well as like a whole bunch of things that that you would say, that you were saying, is that like the rivalries between the players made such a hype thing. TSM versus CLG was because the owners of those two corporations didn't hate each other, but were rivals. They were like competitors. And the Bjergsen versus Jensen was because one of them smack talked in solo queue on stream, and it was so fun. And that just like spiraled. They didn't hate each other. They just smack talked like once, and then it became like a huge thing to watch. It was so fun. Now I feel like the only people who are like diehard fans, like me and CLG, are fans because they've been fans for so long. I don't know too many diehard fans in NA that weren't diehard fans from the beginning of their like experience in professional play, or
that makes
had
sense.
like a favorite player.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that go into that, right? It's not necessarily, I don't think people only played, I mean, the attendance of the LCS, obviously, Corona, and that's something we didn't even mention, right? Like, the attendance of Corona, the coronavirus really killed any kind of in-person arena events, which I think a lot of the hype around, like, the end of the season tournament to go to the Worlds, or as far as, you know, being able to have people that get that hype up to travel across, you know, state lines to be able to see their favorite players. I think there's a lot of things that came, like, you know, the downplay, like we've been speaking about, of corporations not allowing that possibility of toxicity to affect their brand. I mean, it's a lot of things, in my opinion, in that regard that kind of hindered and really made that an issue where people couldn't get on board like they used to, right?
Yeah, and part of it is that, like, the brands are not just League of Legends brands anymore. TSM is not League of Legends. In fact, that's not even their main game anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, like, when the risk comes into toxic brands or toxic players, it's not rivalries in League of Legends where everyone is in on the rivalry. It's more of one player's toxic for no reason, and it's like, it's dangerous because if players don't know, like, if you don't know anything about, we'll say, basketball, right? And Draymond Green, you would hate Golden State because Draymond Green is part of it, even though because of how toxic he is. That's how it is with League of Legends. It's like, if you don't know anything about League and you see, oh, Bjergsen's being toxic towards Jensen, you're gonna hate TSM or whatever because you aren't in on it. That's not part of your environment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for anybody that doesn't know, Draymond Green punched one of his teammates in the face recently, and it became super viral, and it was a big deal in the NBA. So if anybody in chat's wondering what he's referring to in that, he's exactly right. And I think the point that he just made even illustrates that, because you guys probably have no idea until I just explained what that meant. So I agree. I really agree. So I think switching over into the toxicity that the players are no longer allowed to have kind of in a competitive environment in a professional league. Maybe it's a little different in Europe. I mean, we are just talking about NA because most of us in chat, most of us in both of our streams are NA players. So this is not necessarily covering in general in EU or other regions as well. So that's all we can speak about is our experiences. But the toxicity of the game is definitely something that we have to address, and something that we've even kind of nitpicked here and there, talking about our own experiences, talking about, hey, you know, back when I was a younger player, not even a young man, because I'm boomer as hell right now, 35 years old. So back, you know, in season 5, 7 years ago, I'm still, you know, 20, 28, 27 years old. I'm not a young guy. I don't have the excuse per se of being a sad high schooler, quote unquote, of what you talked about earlier. But I mean, I what do you think as far as not just the general season by season or the state of toxicity? How do you view toxicity within the game in general? How does it fester? How does one, why do you think one becomes toxic? What's a way to fix it? Let's just kind of dive into that, because I think that's a really important part about League of Legends in general.
So I think I'll quote the big boy Donkey plays video games when he says, League of Legends is a game that breeds toxicity. It is everything that has to do with toxicity League of Legends has. It doesn't have comms, which, while people will be like, oh, you get weird toxic players, I feel like comms stops people from being toxic as much, because somebody might call me some pretty aggressive words on like in chat, but nobody's gonna say that to my face, because we're all nerd weebs that are afraid of confrontation. Right?
Of course.
That being said, yeah. So League doesn't have comms. League is a very long game. So you're stuck. If you're not having fun and you're stuck playing this game for 45 minutes, you're just going to hate your life. Like, of course you're going to be toxic, and of course it's going to get worse because you're stuck doing something you absolutely dread and hate for 45 minutes. Which, like, that's part of the toxicity. I would say that, and the other part of the toxicity is, like, there are such a vast amount of champions and so many different abilities that, like, if you're an AD carry and you get one shot by a Zed, and the amount of outplay that you have is by GA and you can outplay him every 5 minutes, that sucks. And you only get one ban.
Yeah.
I would say, however, this is all a caveat. So that's all Donkey's views, and I agree with most of them. I'm gonna say the only thing Riot should care about is toxicity physically in the game, and like words that obviously are TOS.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to chat, banter, I feel like is a very important aspect of leagues. Either get voice comms or let people banter in game. There is a mute button for a reason. People should use it more. I'll give them that. But, like, I don't care if somebody's flaming me in my game. If they're 20-0, let them flame me. I'll lay on my back while they step on me. I don't care. But I'm gonna get that carry. They can be the rudest people, but they can't be rude and bad. If they run it down because I said, why are you playing poorly at 3 minutes in? That's where I feel like they should get banned. And that's the hardest to ban, is players choosing to int in game.
Right.
What I will call soft inting.
Yeah. In my opinion, too, it's the biggest thing that breeds the toxicity is exactly what you said. There's always been a long-standing problem with the game that, because it's a team game in nature, and because it's set up in such a way that you can influence by your gameplay the complete path, decision-making process, experience, gold, team fighting, dueling, whatever it may be, with just your decision-making process within the game, minus anything to do with typing or even saying a word, spamming, pinging, whatever it may be, that people have the power to be able to ruin a gameplay experience in so many ways outside of toxicity. You can hold somebody hostage in a game just by not forfeiting. You can run down a lane and int. You can AFK side split and never die, but have a bunch of farm and never be an impact to the game. You can literally play Trundle and follow someone around with a pillar and knock them up every time they try to back, so they can never back unless they run to the fountain. There's so many different ways in this game that you can affect your teammates' gameplay experience, their overall general demeanor within the game, and how they see and interpret how much fun they have within just the 45, 20, whatever minute process that they're playing a single game, that Riot has never ever really done effective, meaningful change in, right? The only way you'll ever get banned for inting is if you go 0-20, and it's absolutely egregious. You can have so many different ways to side split a lane, AFK jungle farm, where they'll never get you for being underleveled or unfarmed. Like, if you just move around even within the base, you'll never get an AFK wait. I mean, all of the different things that you can do regardless of talking, I think it's a big thing. But at the same time, while people will complain, they'll say what the issue is, the problem is, no one can really even like even I mean, these guys, and we have the whole joke, the 200 years of the champion creation balance team, or we have all of the tribunal that went away, or we have the punishment system, or the whoever the entities are for being able to address these different aspects of the game can all be, targeted and said that they're not doing a good enough job. But are those things that just because of the nature of the game will never be fixed by itself, or is this something that really can be and there's just nothing being done about it?
I don't think there's anything you can do. Like, I'm trying to think of something that I would implement. I know there are a few people who are diehard tribunal players, like bring back the tribunal.
Mm-hmm.
That tribunal was busted, bro. I know a few different streamers that got nothing done to them that would like literally link tribunal things, and it was like a punish or don't punish option. These streamers with like hundreds of viewers would just link it to their chat and be like, punish him, and that person would get punished, that person would get banned. It didn't work, but there's no real way to work it. Like, maybe you could, I think the best way that you could make League of Legends fix is by implementing a bonus LP or negative LP based on your play. If you did 800 damage in a game, in a 30-minute game, and you won the game and you got 1 LP, you wouldn't do, like, you would fix your you would fix your behavior. Or like if you went AFK and you dropped a rank because of it, I don't think you'd AFK again. Or you would drop so drastically so quickly that it's like you can only troll in like Iron 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, though. And why do you think that that's something that they necessarily have never really attacked? I know that there are ways, and I've seen them. I've seen posts where people can only gain like 5 LP in a game, right? But outside of losing LP for a loss, like, why do you think that even in the current state of the game right now, we're not even speaking of how long it's been evolving and how long LP has been a thing, but why do you think that they've never implemented a system of such different amounts of LP either lost or gained because of personal performance linked to stats? Why has that just never been, why has that never been a thing?
I don't know. I'm sure. So balancing a game like this is so hard. Like, you have to balance millions of players LP, and people don't give credit to having anything that even resembles working. Like, that's so hard. That being said, I know that they do it with Valorant. Like, if you play Valorant, which is another Riot game, and you perform really well, you can get +3 LP or whatever. I think it's RR or something for that play. I don't know why they haven't implemented in League. I'm kind of assuming that it's because there's such a big player base difference. Like, Valorant has 1 million players, while League of Legends has like 14 million average daily players.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they wouldn't, but I'm assuming it's something along the lines of that's really hard to implement, especially with spaghetti code that they have.
Yeah, so, but along the lines of what we're talking, and I don't know if anybody in chat, this is kind of a very, I think I'm Too New mentioned this earlier in chat, and I think that's a great point that I did not even realize when I read this. I was like, oh, okay, that's definitely a good change. That's definitely a good thing to have for them to implement. But for this alone, so the behavioral systems, if you guys didn't notice on the patch that was just implemented, and I'll read this word for word, that zero tolerance language will now be detected live and in-game. When detected, these messages will not be sent to the other players. The offending player of the system will be muted, and all players will be notified. I'm not sure how that's going to work, or how that they're going to have that be a pop-up within the game itself or the chat log. With our growing confidence in feeding detection, we're increasing the strictness of the model for high-level play and ranked solo duo. We'll continue evaluating plays and other cues and make adjustments as necessary. Recently honored players will now be more visible in the Add Friend and Friend Request menus. We want to make sure it's easy to keep playing with those players you've enjoyed playing with in the past. So, going off of that first blurb, which I think is the most important, they're saying that they're going to detect, maybe it's certain key phrases, it's certain keywords. That person will be automatically muted. Nobody will see what's said, and then they'll have a notification that that person's going to say that. Now, while I can see the thinking behind that, and I can definitely see why they may believe that that's like the best way to go about it, I'm too new. In chat said earlier that if you take away the ability for somebody to be talking constant toxicity to their teammates.
13 months.
Hey, thank you so much, Ink Monsters. I appreciate you for the 13. That it's going to motivate if the person cannot say anything, then their actions are going to increase in a negative way. They're going to start griefing. They're going to start AFKing, or AFK not in the sense of leaving the game, but what we talked about earlier, farm splitting lanes with no impact, stealing jungle, running around in the base. Do you think that might happen, Jaeger?
I think this is a good start. And I know what Nub meant by it is that, like, if you don't let a player be toxic, they'll find another outlet to be toxic in. I don't know if I I know that I agree with that to an extent. I feel like that this is a good start. I will immediately change my mind if they ban the word like fuck. Everything.
I need that.
That.
It's so versatile.
Yeah. If they ban like random words, like just random swear words, I'm gonna have a problem. I'm gonna get banned. 90% of the league player will get banned. Whatever. But, that being said, I think it's a good start as long as they use it sparingly. Like, if there's someone typing 15 messages in 2 minutes and they can't type anymore, good. I think that's probably good. If there is someone that, I don't know, if there's someone that's, like, typing, like, really derogatory words because they find out that they have a female streamer in chat, gone. Whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But I think that they need to... This is a good start from what they need to do. But now they need to crack down on players. Like, I don't even think they necessarily need to crack down, but I think that they need to implement like a skill system where, like, even if you win, if you go 0 and 10, you don't get LP. 0. Nothing. Or something like that, right? Like, if they start implementing things to punish or reward players for doing well or doing badly... That's how you add on to this and really fix the community, right? Players need to have some form of punishment besides not being able to type to become better humans. You're trying to, like, correct just your entire mentality of your player base. You need to give them rewards and punishments for what, like, their actual play.
Yeah. And where you... And like you said earlier, and I agree, you hit them where it hurts in the LP. Like that, I mean, people, I believe, will not change behavior until it affects what the ultimate goal of the behavior. Like, the bottom line is the toxicity comes from, let's be honest here, and I'll tell you from my specific personality and my situation, that I played, like I told you earlier, a lot of Counter-Strike in the early years when it came out when I was in middle school. Even being as immature as I was in middle school, as competitive as I was even at an early age, I never saw myself typing, talking, or being extremely negative. Even when I would play Halo, I would play Call of Duty, I would play all of these very, very competitive early games that I never found myself in the situation that I got so invested, even though I would play hours and hours. I was a level 49 on Halo. I was almost a general. Like in Call of Duty, I can't remember what my rank was, but I remember being very proficient in those games where toxicity was a thing. But until I played League of Legends, it just never I was never to the point where I ever felt that I would be so angered or so bothered by other people's words or actions in a video game. I mean, what do you think that is, or why do you think that is such an issue with League itself, Jaeger?
I think when it comes to all player behavior and player base and everything like that, it's just I've started realizing, like, this is with real life too. People are rewarded with positive reinforcement and punished with negative reinforcement. And I feel like when you start trying to punish players by taking away things that they use to express themselves negatively, like if you take players, I'm trying to think of a way to word this. If you take away things that players don't care about, they're not going to, like, they won't change. Players ultimately want to play well in their game, and they want others to play well in their game, and they want that to improve LP wise.
Yeah.
I think that's just the only way to fix it.
But what do you think specifically, and not to interrupt, but for you, did you have any problems before League playing other games? Kind of, was it similar for you? Were you ever finding yourself to be negative, or were you ever finding yourself to be to the point where you would have the need to tell people, like, why are you being an asshole? Why are you doing this? Can you please listen to me? Like, however the form of toxicity that we've all maybe had at one point with League of Legends, why do you think it's so different for this game specifically? If you've ever, like, maybe, not to put you on the spot here, Jaeger, maybe you've been toxic in other video games, but, you know, what specifically is it about League? For me, I can say, I wanted to have you start out with it, but has that also been the case with you? Or are you just toxic in every video game you play?
Alright, I don't play video games that often. This is something that's known throughout my community. I play 1 or 2 games, and I flame in Twitch, and that's about it. But I will say, like, the biggest thing in most games that League cannot or will not implement is, I've noticed that toxicity goes away more often when there's communication, verbal communication. The biggest problem with League is they don't want to implement voice comms, and I think it's because they can't, because they'd have to revamp everything in their game because of their coding and how it's based right now. But I think that voice comms are like I'm trying to, like, put it into a perspective of, like, a competitive, like, IRL thing, right? Maybe you're playing basketball, maybe you're playing intramurals, maybe you're playing, I don't know, team chess, Mario Kart, I don't know. But you put, like, the personal perspective, because, like, I also run community days for our school, esports community days. I have met the most toxic people on the planet typing in game, but you put them in front of a keyboard, and even when they're playing solo queue at community hours and they go, like, they say the F word, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear here, and they slam their desk or whatever in a solo queue game, you put them in a community day where they have to be with the people that they're slamming their desk about, they don't do anything. Nothing happens. So I think it's all just, you implement a voice comms. That's the most frustrating thing, is you're trying to communicate with your players, but you can't. And so you have to sit and type. And it doesn't work. Like, if you have to sit and type, you're gonna type mean stuff. So you gotta, like, just implement voice comms. I think that's how you control, at the very least, poor behavior.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the reason for me specifically is in shooter games or FPSs where, sure, like, you work in a team environment or a team setting where you're all trying to more or less like go to the same common goal. You're trying to win the game, capture the flag, be the last one standing, have the most kills, whatever it might be. Or like in StarCraft, like I don't have too much experience with computer games, like I've told you before League of Legends. I would say that for me specifically, compared to all the video games I've ever played in the past, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think the combination of how much goes into learning League of Legends, that there are so many things about the game that can lead you to become to the point where I think ego's a lot of it. I think, like you're saying, is the inability to communicate with voice comms. But I also think it's so much invested time and effort to learn so many things about the game. And there's so many different little minute details in last split second advantages, disadvantages, and timing, ulting the wrong way, queuing the wrong time, not playing off a CC. I think it's because of a combination of how much time and effort it takes just to be mediocrely good at League of Legends, and how much it depends on other teammates in perspective to other games, where League specifically, there are so many aspects of how much it depends on other people to not do the wrong thing. And that's almost important. It's just them not doing the wrong thing. It's not necessarily doing the perfect thing or the right thing. It's just that there's so many wrong things that a person can do in a team of 5 to absolutely affect all of the different aspects of another person's playing experience, that it gives so much power to that 1 or 2 people that can just ruin the entire experience, because there's no longer, like, nobody cares if you have a bunch of kills like in other games. Nobody cares if there's advantages that you have in League of Legends if you don't win, right? Like, if you don't win, that's the bottom line. You can have as many other accolades as possible throughout a gameplay in a 45-minute experience, but if you don't win, nobody cares. So I think the reason that it's so compared to other games, that toxicity is such a problem with League in general, not just in the current meta, but, you know, at any point in time, in any meta, in any season, but it's gotten worse and worse gradually, is because of that fact. More people are joining, more people are affected by more people that are ruining that experience because of the nature of the game, that it's so crazy. Like, every time I reflect on it, I'm like, I was never so and I think it's because I was so invested in this game. I put so much time and effort, and I became so obsessed. It's like a toxic addiction, right? You keep coming back, even if you get frustrated, if you get flamed, even if you play bad, even if you have a bad streak, even if a bunch of people ruin your experience time and time again. Like, you just keep coming back. Everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about how League ruined their lives, but they can't stop playing it. And I just think it's such a multifaceted problem that has just grown and eventually snowballed, and it's such a big overlying reason. I mean, do you agree with everything that I've been saying in that?
I'm gonna come back at you on this.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from, and I agree to an extent. But my argument will be, while I understand 100% why you feel the way that you do, I notice that there are players that can win at an 80, 70, 80, 90% win ratio. And nobody, I don't care what anyone says, everyone gets the same luck in League of Legends. Now, some people might have bad luck some days, and some people might have bad luck the other days, but you average it all out, and the system works fairly well. Nobody's getting ultimately screwed more than anybody else.
Welcome to the most growth.
That being said, there are still players that can climb actively. I think it's the mentality of players, and I don't know how this is why I said I don't know if you can fix it, because at the end of the day, it's the mentality of players being like, I can't do anything, my teammates all feed, is why they can't do anything. I don't think it's fixable, because you need to fix the core aspect of the point of League of Legends. The whole point is, like, people see the point is to, I don't know, they don't care about their play. But there's definitely players that are very impactful in lane phase, go into the macro rotation phase and do really well. And it doesn't matter if their teammates are listening or not. Well, it kind of matters, like 20% of the time. But if they're doing everything right, they can win 70 to an 80% way of League of Legends. But most people are like, my teammates suck, so I lose the game. And then they FF 15. I've noticed that if I stop FF, like when I'm just playing to play and I'm playing for stream, I'll FF. But if I'm actually trying to climb, just by refusing to hit the FF button, I will win at like a 2% higher rank, which is a big deal if I'm like stuck at 49 to 51% win rate. If I turn that into 53, that's climbing versus stagnating by a lot. So I think it's the like mentality of League, honestly.
Yeah, and I'll say this though. I mean, like you said, there are players out there that can go 60, 70, 80% win rates, like just mute all chat, not be affected by, if somebody decides to start trolling or if somebody gives up on a game that doesn't look winnable, but then that person perseveres, pushes through, and ends up carrying regardless. Yes, but that kind of player is so few and far between. I'll tell you what, like not even just the mentality, like the mental. I've been watching a lot of Broxa. If you guys watch that jungler, I mean, the pinnacle of the pillar of staying positive and just using and relying on your skill to push through and let your actions do the talking and let your elo do the talking. But Jaeger, I'll tell you, since I for anybody that's new in here, basically between about season 7 and season 11, I hovered in platinum between 3 different roles. But this season, I have been playing mainly with my girlfriend, who is a brand new player in League of Legends this season. Plays support. I've never been an ADC player. I used it as an opportunity to take one of my accounts, say, you know what, screw it. I'm only gonna play ADC with her in the majority of this season when I play ranked on this account. And Jaeger, I'll tell you what, I've never been bronze in more than placements ever, except for my first season of League of Legends, or my second season, because that's when I started playing ranked. I'll hit silver in 3 or 4 games almost, and on, even a fresh account. And in bronze, I shit you not, like, people will have the wrong mentality. They'll clearly do the wrong thing. They'll have people trying to be like helpful, let them know like what's going on, why they did something wrong, be friendly about it. And I will tell you what, being in bronze for almost 150 games in rank this season, even in that elo, people are so stuck on the mentality that there's no possible way they could be wrong. There's no possible way they could misspeak or misplay in that elo, which is shocking to me because I never knew this was a problem until now. I've heard that it's toxic in platinum and, as much as it is in like challenger, but I've never heard that in bronze it's just as toxic as in silver, gold, and platinum. And it's wild to me. And I think it's a lot of the ego. I think it's a lot of people, once they put a certain amount of time and effort into the game and realize that they have some kind of understanding after a certain amount of time and effort put into it, that I think a lot of people have a hard time realizing that there's so much more to the game that they can learn regardless. There's so much more that even if you're a fucking Masters player, there's so much you can take away from every game. And I think the inability and the closed-mindedness of a lot of players in this community basically has morphed into a consensus or an overall group ideal that it has to be somebody else's fault except for mine because I'm right. I don't want to listen, even if someone's being very gracious, helpful, and goes about it in the most, professional, well-meaning way possible, that everybody is so quick to either say that you're flaming me, you're wrong, fuck you, whatever it might be in game, outside of just wanting to maybe take away from the game and learn from their own mistakes and learn and improve their mentality and their attitude with the game. It's become a huge issue, and I guess I didn't really get the extent of how big of an issue that is until this season, but it's crazy to me, Jaeger. And why do you think that there's so much of an inclination for people to blame others instead of introspective thought, feeling, and learning about their their own gameplay. Why do people do that? Why is that such a technicality in this game?
I think 3 things. 1, you get a lot of people who are competitive but have never had to play in a competitive environment in their life, if that makes sense. So like League of Legends is a team game, but ultimately you are competing alone in a dark room, right? Like ultimately, and like I feel like you learn certain skills like how to take constructive criticism, how to become introspective from being on like a team where that is part of life. Like you have to learn how to do this, or you just won't succeed. Right. And I feel like a lot of League players have never had to be in that environment, or the environment that they are, it doesn't really matter. So that's one thing. I think 2 things, or the second thing when it comes to that mentality is League is a hobby for a lot of players, especially in Bronze and Silver, is that they come home, they cook some food they come home from an 8 to 9 hour workday, they cook some food, they sit down for this being their casual recreation, and they play 3 games and then they never think about it again. They don't care where they're at. They might say they care because they do a little bit, but they don't care enough to improve. And because of that, they might not have the knowledge or capability of how to improve. They might not care because this is just kind of fun for them, and they kind of care about their rank, but they don't care enough to like sit back and learn. Or ultimately it might be because it's hard to be introspective. It's hard to sit. If I told you right now, in every single game that you played, Moosey, you were the cause of 30% of that loss. Every single game. How would you take that?
Yeah, I mean, I just, being as competitive, I guess, like, I 100% agree. And chat, let's make sure everything is staying on the up and up in Silver, guys. Let's all be positive, please. I guess with, like, you're right in the sense that a lot of people that play, and again, this is not a knock on anybody that likes to play video games over competitive sports. This is not a standardized, like, blanket statement of, oh, look at all these nerds playing video games, they must not have been good at sports, they play video games. Like, that's not what we're saying here. But I agree with what you're saying in the fact that a lot of people that haven't been in the previous environment of being able to play in a team-oriented situation where you have to work together, you have to learn from your mistakes, you have to improve, you have to, persevere. Those qualities really come importantly in the game of League of Legends. So, like, I really think I see what you're saying, that is a big thing too, not just with casual players, but with a lot of people in general. It's also the anonymity of not having to confront or speak to them on a microphone. I agree. That's a great point. That really is an interesting way to look at something that I didn't even consider. For even if that is the situation at hand, though, what advice can you give, or what kind of situation, like, can be improved to not only have people be better teammates, willing to, adapt with criticism, work together, persevere, like all the things that we're kind of speaking about? What's a way that, not even Riot, I don't think that that's responsible for the video game itself to install that on people, but how do you think that individuals can get better? Like, how can I as a teammate deal with that person, and how can that even be fixed, I guess is what my question is.
So so there are a few things. A lot of, in my opinion, how you fix that is kind of fixing. I don't necessarily think that you need to fix your personal life, but I feel like you have to intentionally not put yourself in a team setting in order to have avoided it. For as most people are like 19 to 25 years old in leagues or older. But I feel like you have to actually attempt at this point to have not had to learn how to be in a team setting, or maybe you just don't maybe you just don't have a ton of hobbies or something like that. outside of video games, and video games tends to be a little bit more one-on-one, and when you get put in that personal, like in that team light, it's kind of hard to realize that, like, how to improve as a team player, but also individually if you haven't had to do it before. Right. So part of it is kind of finding an outlet where there is accountability in your life that you can improve from in a team setting. And maybe the other part of it is, like, I am a firm believer of this. If you're trying to climb and you are not spending 1 to 2 hours any time that you play looking at your own VODs, you're not actually trying to climb. You're trying to play for fun League of Legends.
Yeah. I mean, but and that's the thing, though. I think that's another good point, and not to interrupt, Jaeger, but I think even in normals, even in games that don't matter, that are supposed to be fun, people don't treat it as such. Like, people even treat the games that couldn't possibly matter less. Even in, like, ARAMs is better because it's not the competitive rotations and farming and towers and objectives like Summoner's Rift is, but even ARAMs, which is the most, like, nonchalant, supposed to be fun version of League of Legends, you will still have toxicity. I mean, why do people refuse to quote-unquote treat League like a fun thing at times?
I don't know. Because people don't like to see that big red defeat screen on their monitor. It's a very discouraging feeling. And it's even more discouraging. I feel like probably once every 6-7 games, you will like actually have a troll, right? It's not as often as people think that you have that troll, but it's like, and this is kind of the same thing with streamers. If you get one bad comment or one bad DM or one bad thing in your YouTube comments or whatever, that will stand out so hard in everything. That will ruin your whole day. So if you get a game where somebody trolls, even if it's for fun, and you're like, it's for fun, but I also want to play, and somebody's just like, I'm gonna run down 18 times and die. That sucks, and that's going to just, like, impact you for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And while 1 in 7-ish games isn't that much, if you multiply that by 5 players, it turns into at least one player's had that happen to them that night, and it's impacted their gameplay and their mood and their everything, and then that spirals into everybody on the team.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I will go back to, I really do. I mean, it's really weird, because that's a great point that you just made, which is so wild to me to say. And I feel so immature saying this, but I will literally be having a pretty mediocre to normal day. I'll get on League of Legends in even a normals game, not a rank game, nothing that's going to affect my LP, nothing that's going to affect my profile. I'll get somebody that even flames myself or another teammate, ruins the game. It happens more than once, a couple of games in a row, and my entire night is shot. Like, all I will remember when I lay my head down that night is the time that person was super toxic, the time that I lost all 3 games, the time that it was not in it. Like, it just hangs with me, and I've never had a video game do that. On the flip side, even though that's the case, even though I think we all step into League of Legends with the possibility that it could go negative, that we could lose, and then on top of it losing just normally with no toxicity, it can always be because of someone being negative or toxic or running it down or whatever it might be, right? That we're still, like, even during times, and I'm not trying to get too heavy with this, but, like, there's been times during depressional stouts that I've had, or during times when I'm super lonely, or during times where I'm having a bad day and I just want to escape reality, knowing that League of Legends could possibly compound onto that already volatile state of mind that I'm in, I will still go back and play League of Legends. Like, and the thing is that League can also be a positive thing, because then in the times where it is like I'll win a couple of games, I'll carry, like, it's just, it can really, the escape and the amount of focus and intensity that you can have that can kind of just whisk you away from the reality of something that might be bad or going on in your life as a distraction, as a complete immersion into an experience. I think that that's a big thing of League of Legends too, because you know what I mean? Like it's the double-edged sword, and it can be such a good thing and a bad thing, or everything in between. And I mean, do you think it's a lot of people that are in the similar situation? Because you always have to remember that there's always somebody behind that keyboard. There's always a real living person that might be going through a million different scenarios. And do you think it's because of maybe a little bit of what I'm saying too, that League of Legends is that escape for so many people of the mundaneness of the, maybe I guess the IRL toxicity that they deal with, that you're already getting a bunch of people that are already, you know, that have the proclivity of potentially just having League of Legends be the final straw that pisses them off and just ruins their day completely, and then they take it out on it. Like, I guess that's any video game, but do you think that's more true for League of Legends than other games themselves? Or is that just a blanket statement for video games in general?
By the way, when you get a chance, go check Discord DMs. But
Okay.
I would say that after I used to think League of Legends was the most toxic, horrible mindset on the planet, right? I played League of Legends, like, it was so bad. However, bro, ever since I started this new job, and this was hosting events and being involved in my college esports scene, all games, I realized that, holy crap, there are so many horribly horrid, bad, like, not bad players, but bad communities. Like, I thought that communities were really, really bad in League of Legends, but ultimately it was, it's like Rocket League, horribly toxic, Super Smash Bros, competitive but really toxic with a really scary, like, behind the scene. And like I've even noticed, even like casual, like Valorant's toxic, all of the Rainbow Siege super toxic, and then like you get into stuff like, this blew my mind, stuff like Mario Kart. The people who take that stuff seriously, they will, like, I saw somebody, this is a community day, this was for a can of G Fuel, right? Somebody picked up their controller, smashed it on the ground, and walked out. This is for total fun. This is just all of this isn't just League of Legends. This is actually just computer games, like video games in general, I think.
Well, that's actually interesting. Do you think computer games have a proclivity to be more toxic than console games?
I think I misspoke there. I don't think it's I think it's video games. I think it's not only video games, but it's also the demographic of the people who play video games. Between those two, you get, like I said, I would say on average, a lot of players haven't had to work in a super team oriented, positive, learned how to give constructive criticism. A lot of people haven't learned that.
Right.
And so you get that plus like just how frustrating like video games are, because it's designed to be addictive. There's been a ton of studies about this. That is just really hard to deal with in any setting, and because of that you just breed toxicity.
So I mean, moving forward, I know that we said a little bit about, and there's different arguments, right? There's bring a chat into the game, I think is a good idea. At least try it. I think that they were about to try it in NA and they decided against it. I think that the idea of maybe changing the LP system so you either win or lose depending on your personal achievements or your personal performance, but that may be just a few and far cry to even consider that might be something that can be done. And then also, I believe that having a more stringent method of being able to punish people that int games, that, you know, to be able to detect somebody that just AFK splits does like 400 damage but has 250 CS. I mean, I think that there's small algorithms and small coding differences that for some reason I just, even those little changes, I think could go a long way. Honestly, and this is the last thing I want to say about toxicity in League right now, is that it's unfortunate because at the beginning of this season, a lot of people were having trouble last season because of the ban system with language. You could get banned for saying just swear words in any context. You could get banned for just purely talking too much, even if you're not necessarily being negative or being extremely toxic in comparison to other people. You could get banned for just being frustrated and telling off somebody that's being ultimately toxic to everybody, even in all chat. That so many people were getting banned that it became such a problem, and Riot started losing player base off of that this season, they actually, if you haven't noticed or not, and I don't know if anybody in chat has noticed this, that you don't get report feedbacks anymore comparative to other seasons. A lot of toxicity is allowed as far as the chat these days, and maybe, which is why what we read in the patch notes, that they're trying to automatically change that or fix that. I think that it was a kind of a band-aid on an open wound that needed stitches. And I also think that it further complicated a lot of other matters in the game as well, because when you have while people are not being banned and complaining about being banned for talking and chat too much or swearing, relaxing that system and not having people be punished for that has emboldened people to become more toxic and and because they are getting away with and not being, 7-day ban, 14-day ban, 10-game ban, 25-game ban, whatever it is, that they are being emboldened to talk more, which is in tune also causing the people that are more inclined to AFK, side lane split, steal jungle farm, troll, because then the more people that are being toxic are encouraging the people that are doing the behavior that is not detectable to do even more of that behavior. And so we're at probably peak toxicity in League of Legends this season alone because of some of those changes. It's unfortunate. I really, and are you kind of experiencing and are you kind of on agreement with that, Mr. Jaeger? Or, I mean, have you seen more toxic seasons than this one?
I think this season I've gotten the most, some of the most trolls. I don't think I've seen, too many horrible chat, but that's also because I permaban, or I permamute. Well, I used to. I don't actually, but sometimes I do. When I get really tilted, I just start muting people now. Ultimately, I hope that with this new system, it doesn't end up leading to bans. Because I feel like it's really hard to implement what people saying is toxic, right? If you're saying, dang, I really want to kill this bot lane because they're super far ahead and it registers kill as a bad word, that's fine. Now you can't type, but I hope you don't get banned for that, right? I agree with the thought of make it less verbally toxic. But also I think that it shouldn't be a ban. It should just be you can't talk for that game, and then make more of a priority, because this is where it actually affects people, to find a way to fix players' behavior, in-game personal behavior.
Yeah. And so I know there's no really easy one-step and one-chop shop to be able to have it be the first of many or the big fix or anything that can ultimately lead to, salvation of the toxicity in the community. But what would be your biggest piece of advice for anybody that, maybe has been toxic in the past and needs and something to help them out, something that can allow maybe somebody to ignore the toxicity, a method that someone can use to be able to, I guess, I mean, what would you just say to, if there was somebody that wanted to know how to either deal with it or become less toxic themselves, what would you say for advice?
I would say if you want to become less toxic, stop caring about elo, stop caring about your LP, stop caring about your wins losses, and start caring more about how you're playing the game. Because even if you feel like you're playing perfectly, if you leave that game feeling like you played perfectly and that's what you care about, win or loss, you're going to be happy. If you leave that game saying, I screwed up on 5 things in this game, you have a basis to improve, and when you start seeing improvement, then you'll be happier.
Yeah.
So that's how I would say this is how you help yourself be not toxic. And for people dealing with toxicity, mute all, because if you type back at someone being toxic, you're going to get more angry and they are going to get more angry, and that's going to spiral.
Yeah.
And then I guess also just kind of when games start to be bad and you get hostage, because the most frustrating part of League of Legends is when you have that one person that's 0-20 and hits no on the FF15. Just start playing for yourself. Find things that, like, you're playing from behind at this point. Learn what you can do to play from behind, because while that game is over, you can take things from every single game and implement them into a future game.
Yep.
So focus on yourself.
Yep.
And mute all.
Oh, 100%. What you just said hit the nail on the head is exactly what I was going to say. I'm kind of jealous that you said at the very end, because I was going to have like a revolutionary moment that you didn't hit on. But no, I the biggest piece of advice I would say for anybody out there that wants to get better or wants to avoid the toxicity or wants to like kind of dodge the whole proclivity or the tendency that people have to say it's got to be somebody else, it's got to be their fault, it's got to be your fault, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, why didn't you ward, how come you didn't teleport, how come you didn't go to dragon, whatever the case may be. If you really want to see League of Legends for what it can be, if you focus everything on just one thing, it's yourself. I think even in wins you can learn something, even in losses you can learn something, in comebacks you can learn something, in blowouts you can learn something. Really just realizing that you can affect your own gameplay, your mindset can be about more of what you could have done better in a game regardless than what the other people could have said or done or listened. I think that that's like the biggest thing, that once people, a lot of people, when they said once I started doing X they started climbing, I think that's the thing that most people will say, right? So moving into the current meta, I know that we have a graphic here that MrJagerMan sent me, which is the sadness about NA LCS, the state of League of Legends that most of us know, because most of us are in the NA region, and it's a big sad. We talked a little bit about why the streamers and the entities and the people in the LCS from season 7, 8, and 9 have kind of gone away. Why, you know, North America can be somewhere that is maybe the game isn't being as important or touted, or people are not watching as much as they used to, or it's not as popular in the region. It's unfortunately because of the state of the NA position within the global community of League of Legends. While we are still pretty good, and while we still can be considered better than quite a few regions out there, we as a major region just continue to suffer year after year, no matter the meta, no matter the players, no matter the amount of imports. Jaeger, I'll let you kind of start with this of why you think that is. While we're looking at this graphic, if anybody isn't aware, in the NA LCS performance of Worlds this year, big sad, we went 3-15. Cloud9 went 1-5. Evil Geniuses went 1-5. 100 Thieves went 1-5. I cry. Jaeger, why? What? Just, I know that's about a 7-part question, a 100-part question to ask, you know, poignantly and direct to the point to say why do you think that is, but what's the issue? Why? Because there's no lack of player base in the LCS and NA. Millions and millions and millions of people play this game every day. I mean, I want to leave this open to you before I kind of express maybe why I think that is, but why can't we just seem to get it right? What's going on here?
Okay, so I will say that while we are top 3, maybe 4, of regions, so Europe has a much bigger League of Legends scene than we do. South Korea, and I think we're pretty close to China. Like, I will say that while we did people say we did very badly in League or in Worlds this year, we were one of the few teams that had three teams play in the actual Worlds, right? Like, our team won stand-ins. What do they call them? Play-ins?
Oh, the play-ins, yeah.
Yeah, we had 3 teams. We all did badly in the 3 teams, but we had 3 teams. Part of it is that we're not the most popular. You look at the most popular and you see Korea, you see China, you see Europe. Those are all either on par or significantly more people play League of Legends than us. That I feel like I know that South Korea will scout people from like elementary school, like not elementary school, but they, in the same way that, like, if you notice that how we scout like football and basketball players, like from like competitive teams when they're in 5th grade, they do that for esports in like South Korea. They take it a lot more seriously, and I feel like South Korea's mindset is a lot more on micro, while they have players that are good at macro. They have 4 micro players and 1 shot caller, versus NA has 4 macro players that all play around the map. They're all making shot calls. They're all like inputting, but none of them are as good as the small little micro mechanics that you get in South Korea, and that's why we boot camp there, because they are good. They are better than us.
And is it the quality? So clearly the quality of solo queue is much higher in these regions, but also the things that we've covered and talked about. I mean, you'll hear about in Korea especially that after 1 or 2 bad plays in a competitive solo game, everybody will basically agree that the game's over, troll, and forfeit at 15 minutes. In Europe, you'll hear about toxicity being far worse in NA, but Europe's debatably been more superior to us in the recent years. I mean, it's not the toxic behavior that's happening. I think you're hitting a lot of the nail on the head of, I think, in the cultures, it's more of a revered, esports is more revered, I guess you could say, and it's got a bigger player base. But I also believe that, do you think it's because more hours are put in because of the importance, not only just recruiting from a young age, but that the culture in general has? Like, we idolize celebrities or athletes or actors or whatever we have in NA, where a lot of different people are aspiring to be to that level or that person or that industry. But in, like, say, Korea or China, a lot of the celebrities are esports players in the younger to middle age cultures. Do you think that definitely plays into it, or why are we just seeing such high calibers from probably, you could argue, the people that play the most in pros or NA, LCS, or even in Challenger play similar hours than the challengers from other regions? So there's got to be something, right?
Yeah, I would say, like, part of it is that they are idolized a lot more than they are in NA culture. I think that a lot of it is so kind of what I was saying when I said that they're better micro-wise, they have different focuses. If you notice, I don't think that solo queue, I would say solo queue is pretty similar up until you get into that, like, top 0.01%, right? You get that the top of the top, and every region is significantly better than us. But I feel like for the most part, a gold solo queue, or like a mid-gold solo queue player in NA might hit like low gold in Korea. I don't think that it's that big of a difference. I just think that the players are a lot more focused on team comps. They're a lot more focused on the little things, while NA is focused on the big plays, the big rotations, everything like that, they're focused on the little plays, right? You die once, you FF15. It's not a good mindset. It's why their solo queue is so far different than ours.
Yeah.
But very like similar in the same regard of like probably the ranking that people will stay. But I feel like the culture where it comes to what you need to be doing, what the meta is, what champions you play, and how good you play them is so different. I feel like a good micro player in League of Legends, if they are substantially better at micro, they will climb very quickly. Versus macro, like you'll still climb, but like it's just not the same. You won't be able to go 20-0 every game.
Yeah, and I guess, would you say, like, a lot of people will say that NALCS pros specifically in that top 1%, I think Champions Queue is a very interesting thing to introduce into our region this season. And I think that a lot of people will kind of blame I'm not necessarily blame, but people will accredit the fact that maybe the NALCS, the pros that should be playing so much or so little, you'll hear about the pros that won't play in solo queue games after practice. You'll hear about the pros that'll play off roles and off meta champions when they're not doing scrims or when they're not streaming. You'll hear about, you know, a lot of maybe for fun activities happening in the NALCS or the NA pros or the challenger leagues. Do you think it's because of just what we've been talking about as well, the amount of importance and sincerity and seriousness that people treat the game in other regions in comparison? Or like, is that a factor, or do you think that's not even an issue right now?
I think that's a big factor. Jeeves actually brings up a good point in your chat. He said, I've noticed that NA, we trade blows from level 1 while and non-stop fighting, while in Korea it's hyper farms. If you think about it, I don't know if that's necessarily true, to be honest. But if that's true, Korea has pro play mentalities from the minute you start the game. And I didn't think about that, so this is a good point. If you look at pro play, there is 1 to 2 kills by like 15 minutes. If like the other servers are prioritizing that type of play, they are just starting out on a better foot than us when it comes to pro play, right? Like, they're learning to play passive and farm while we're learning be aggressive, fight, try to get those small trades. If you're not 10-0 FF, it would make sense that they start on a better leg if they're starting with the mentality of a pro player.
Right. Yeah, that does make sense. That's a very good point. And then Crossflabo says, we're hyper-aggressive, not to mention the differences in the meta progression. Do you think that the NALCS and just our region in general were just very, very slow? Like you said, I know we mentioned earlier, we don't like large changes with the game. We don't like massive things that'll revolutionize what we're used to, what we're accustomed to, and what we're comfortable with. But do you think that overall, even small meta changes, NA is just far less likely to adapt quick or change with those meta updates? Or are we just, I mean, did they see them faster? Did they create the meta faster and we just follow along? Or what's that dynamic?
So this is something that I've been considering, and I think that this is my biggest frustration with League of Legends. NA solo queue and NA professional play is basically like trying to compare like soccer to like baseball, or trying to compare like sushi to like Outback barbecue. I don't know, like they might be the same subject, but they're so drastically different. And I get really frustrated when they make plays, like they make changes for professional play, because I'm like, you just nerfed Alistar because he's really strong in professional play, but he's a D tier champion in solo queue, so why are you doing that? That's most of your players. But I think that the thing is that professional play meta is more along the lines of Korean meta, and I don't think that they necessarily make the meta. I think that NA just has a completely different mindset. So NA's meta for solo queue is just different from every other region. Like, you get professional meta, you get Korean meta, which is very similar, and then you get NA meta where it's smash face on keyboard, if kid don't die, give up. Like, it's very caveman-esque.
Yeah. And do you think it's also because, and I know this comes up a lot, this is not to be completely blaming of a culture or lacking in our culture, but you know that you say, it seems like people from Korea or China, or just the discipline they have to realize that it's a learning process. It's not an ego thing, that they're so fast and so adaptative in just the culture itself to have such importance on learning and putting everything as a learning experience and an informational database that can be mined and that can be used as compared to what we are willing to accept and work on as a society in our region or our country in general? Or is that just too blanketed of a statement?
I have to think about that.
Yeah, that's actually something that hit me while I was thinking about this as well. Like, I didn't come with that preconception or notion, but I think that might play a small factor. I don't think that's a big factor, but I think, I'm not gonna like bring in the American education system and college and all that shit into it. Like, we could, but that's just splitting hairs at that point. But you know what I mean? We live in kind of more of a society in comparison where hard-headedness might be more of a shared trait than not, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I think that you have a very good point. But I think what you're saying is very broad. Like, when you're saying it, it sounds kind of narrow. Like, it sounds like you're getting at a topic, but like, could you give me a very specific area on what that can be worked on type thing?
As far as like a representational example of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So say just from the perspective of analyzing from a statistical perspective, or seeing a situation mathematically instead of emotionally, right? Being able to see and learn from a situation of, hey, like, that's why this build does not work when I think that this is what I know to be right, because of the stats behind it and how it actually interacts, rather than, oh, I've seen a person do this, I've played it, I've won before, so I must be right. Or seeing a situation of, hey, like, this person isn't willing to listen to me, so I would rather get upset, blame them, and get emotional about something than learn introspectively, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can kind of relate that to. Does that make sense? More of like as a representational of what I'm trying to say.
The move 43 cool guy love the move 43
Yes.
cool guy love the move 43 cool guy
to
love.
say, and I agree with you. I just think that that's really hard. It also doesn't necessarily benefit that what people are saying in chat is right, is that we treat it as a hobby. Like, esports is just very barely getting into like the collegiate scene. Like, a D1 school, while my school is like a mid-sized school, we are still D1, just barely implemented a coordinator, and we don't believe in, or it's a club sport rather than like scholarship.
Right.
And we are slowly getting scholarships across the nation for collegiate play, but it's like, you have to be at the top level to give out those scholarships type thing. Like, you need like truly funded like almost recreation programs or athletic programs to be able to like give scholarships and fund that. While I feel like other regions are just up with the time. They're like, hey, we understand that this can make money. We understand that this is a beneficial thing. We understand that this is becoming a lot bigger. We're going to emphasize our talents. We're going to make sure that we reward people for practicing and learning and getting better. We're just behind on that. We still see video games as some nerd, like some nerd living in your basement
some
or
nerd
living
on the
in their
web.
parents' basement.
Some nerd on the web.
Nope.
I've got a little
I was
chicken sitting right
insulting.
there over on my table. If you didn't notice.
I have nothing bad to say about some nerd.
No. I'm just
I have
kidding.
a lot
to
to say about bad nerds.
Hey,
but
I love you,
he is
nerd.
my
I
favorite.
just heard it. I heard some nerd, so I had to finish out the sentence. But no, I think you're right. And obviously, the imports have not really. And if you're gonna, and we can sit here and we can say, well, if we as a region don't hold this and this as importance, or we don't do this or we don't do that, and other regions do. Well, we import almost our entire rosters at this time. So, like, not our entire rosters, but what is 2 the rule now? And then, obviously, they can go about getting a green card, becoming, you know, an American citizen, and not having it be an import status anymore. But even with paying imports to come in, we're still not having the success that you would think if that's supposed to solve the situation. So, what's your outlook on that?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that, but
I mean, for example, right? You'll see, we saw Broxa, who I was talking about earlier, come into NA and not perform. We saw Perks come into NA and not perform. We've seen multiple pros from other regions. I mean, we saw Huni, who was in Worlds on SKT in top lane, performing at the highest level, come into the NA experience and almost become a meme at times during the seasons. So it's so interesting. And do you think it's just because of people that like we're so accustomed to a certain style of gameplay that the higher levels in other regions that imports come from, that it's like, hey, they can't even like relate to team activities, the same play style, rely on their teammates to be able to adapt to what they're used to doing overseas, is because we're that far behind, and that's why imports can't be successful here. I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at that, right?
Yeah, I think you're totally right, actually. Like, the more that you say, like, explain what you said, because, like, I feel like if you look at T1, I feel like Faker would struggle if he had 4 players that he could just rely on and be that person, and be, like, he could rely on these 4 players to play correctly and listen to his calls and mechanically do the correct play throughout the game. I feel like we don't have that in NA. So when you bring in imports, they're like, all right, I'm going to make a play and expect people to play like humans. And they play like cows and just go along grazing in the jungle. And they don't perform as well as they need to in order to be able to play with that style, that aggression.
Yeah.
Because they can just outplay their opponent.
Yeah, I agree. Well, man, I want to get to this tier list. So, I would love to do it. I'm not going to do the jungle because me and you both support. So I'd love to get, so chat, we are going to be getting to a tier list as well. So if you guys would like to join in, we are going to have polls open for the champions that we bring up on our tier list for you guys to be able to vote along with us and kind of speak along with us on that. But as kind of moving forward, not only just for you and for League of Legends and how you're going to react or how you're going to kind of invest or your outlook or your time or your effort that you want to put forward in, what would you say is kind of like as a 2-part question, what you see yourself doing that's going to allow you to have the most either success in ranked, the most fun, if you see yourself having, you know, a switch in lanes or roles, and at the same time, what you would recommend for anybody out there to, I guess, either do the same in the fun and LP situation?
I enjoy a lot of things. At this point, I've gotten diamond in every role. At least once. However, I feel like when it comes to supports, I feel like support is very good at impacting the game, but I feel like a lot of players who play support don't know how to impact the game. If you play top lane or you play mid lane, the way that you impact and win games is completely different than if you play jungle or support. And the reason is that if you go 20-0 on Fiora, it doesn't matter if you have like drooling Play-Doh idiots on the rest of your team. You're going to one-shot everyone. But if you have a whole bunch of players that just don't want to work or function, then you won't win. So you have to find a way to make them that player that you can rely on. So I guess to climb, it 100% depends on your playstyle. If you're a very aggressive player and want to be rewarded by kills, I think that the role that you are going to benefit the most from isn't going to be stuff like jungle or support or AD carry, because AD carry is AFK farm simulator until you are 5 kills or 100 CS or whatever and you have 2 items.
Right.
So I feel like if you want to in this meta, obviously there are like people say support and jungle is the best to climb with, and probably on average you're right because you're impacting the roles, but that's also kind of part of the NA problem is we all suck mechanically. So like if you're like, I disagree. I feel like if you are consistently winning your lane as Fiora or Camille or like a really hyper carry top lane, play that because you're gonna be better, right? If you learn micro and you're really good at micro and that's just something that clicks with you, play a role that benefits from that. But if you understand how to play the game and move around, you have to pick something else, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. So are you gonna be sticking with support to climb next season, or what are you gonna be doing?
I think that I'll always have a little bit of love in my heart for Alistar support. And I will always be known as the Cowman. I just don't know. Like, I've been playing a little bit of top lane, and it's kind of fun. Syndra feels really, really strong. And like, just some of the ways that you can impact the game seem a little bit more interesting to me, I guess, on the champions that are becoming more relevant in the reworks. So as of right now, I can say I will probably stick with support for climbing. But I'm definitely going to be playing new stuff and learning new lanes. And if I am able to improve as a player mechanically, you could definitely expect a switch to like top or mid lane for me.
So what you've been playing, you said you play mid when you don't play support. Sometimes you jungle. Are you more inclined for mid or top?
I've been liking top lane because I really like Singed or Jax.
Oh,
probably
God.
most people
God, Singed. I saw you play mid Singed in that custom the other day, you son of a gun, dude. All right.
That was my second. That was my few games, bro. It was so fun, though.
Dude, if you turn into a Singed main, Jaeger, I don't know, man. We're gonna have to have a conversation, bro. Come on.
What if I become your Singed main?
Okay.
What if I become your best friend?
I mean, that still doesn't take away from the fact that you're maining Singed, my guy. All right. So, for me personally, I've really enjoyed ADC this season. Learning it, it's miserable when it is a miserable role because a lot of champions in solo lanes, junglers can delete you if they get ahead, even if you're playing well, which is sad. But honestly, I think that ADC is super fun to play in a situation where it's more mechanical. You have clear things that you're supposed to do. It's pretty straightforward what your objective and your goal is as the role. But, you know, I still will always probably, since I started picking up jungler, be a jungle. There's just so many things you can do, so many ways you can affect the map, so many different champions you can play, and so many different ways you can be a shot caller, a vision controller, an objective securer. I really enjoy it. And for anybody out there that wants to maybe pick up jungle, I highly recommend it. Support is probably, I mean, they say that like jungle and support are the two roles that are the most impactful, and, you know, people can agree or disagree, but generally speaking, a lot of people will agree with that statement, unless the meta is very heavy on, you know, a top lane meta, or mid laners get buffs on their items, or whatever the case may be. But that's probably what I'm gonna do. And Jaeger, this season is, believe it or not, the first season that I've ever not climbed on any of my accounts, and I've really enjoyed it, because not only does that make it more of a for fun situation, but then it also makes it for or like playing ranked or playing norms with a 5-man stack is so fun. I think like even though I'm not able to talk in comms because I don't talk on Discord with those 5-man stacks, like working together as a team and seeing like nobody flame, nobody give up, nobody like, you know, run it down or troll or be an asshole. I think that's the way the game's played, and I think that like that has completely been a fun experience this season for me personally to overcome the toxicity of this season. But next season we might be climbing again, baby. Who knows? All right.
I've been trying to climb that hard, bro, and it's been fun.
Oh, so yeah, so how many? So okay, so on that last note, how many ranked games have you put in seriously this season?
All right, so I've put in a decent amount of ranked games, but like they've all been like stream games, and I put in on one account that I don't share with a ton of people because I don't like to duo. I just like to learn and focus on mine, and I don't play on stream. I've put on one account 100 games of serious play, and I've said that I've played seriously on stream, but you never play ranked seriously on stream. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So I would say that I've probably put in 100 serious, like dedicated games to learning, improving, and being a good player this season. But the rest of it's been like duoing with lower elos like friends, or playing some norms, or playing solo but throwing in like random Janna games, or Jex, or Singed Mid, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey man, let's step over. So the last thing we're gonna do, Ed, before we do this, I want this to probably take no longer than half an hour. I don't think we're probably gonna get to a league game, Jaeger, but I didn't plan on doing that in the first place. So if that's okay with you, this can be the last thing that we do on the podcast without the gameplay at the end. But do you need a quick break before we resume? We've been going for about 2.5 hours. Do you need an intermission?
I could use like a 2-minute break.
All right, hey G Black, thank you so much for all the gifted subs tonight, dude. You are now and have always been a G. Guys, we will be right back. We're going to be doing a support tier list. Thank you all so much for being here so far. We've had, I mean, dude, League we could talk about for hours and hours, but I love the conversation that people have been inputting. Jaeger, it's nice to pick your brain on this situation and topic, and I'll see you here in a little bit, brother.
Yeah, peace.
Jaeger, I came back to you whispering sweet nothings. What are you doing over there? What's this guy whispering about while I'm gone, chat? I don't know if you guys can hear him ASMRing, but if I would have had my headphones on the whole time, I know what this guy would be saying. Come on. All right. You're gonna be a little scallywag. I see. All right, so let's jump in. This is gonna be the last. And again, and somebody looked like they did the join queue, and that's actually fantastic that you kind of remind me of it. The queue hasn't been open, so I'm sorry about whoever did try to join the queue and be able to ask the question. Let me scroll up, but whoever that was, I do apologize because I'm supposed to have the queue open the entire time. If you have any questions in the meantime, !join to be able to join the queue, to be able to ask myself, Jaeger, any questions that we've either covered on the topic itself, or to be able to just ask anything. If you want to ask him Pepsi or Coke, if you want to ask him why he's whispering seductively into the microphone while I'm on an intermission break, however you want to ask him, whatever you want to ask, more than welcome to be joining that in the meantime. And I'll do this a little bit differently. While we're doing the tier list, I'm going to work those questions in. Typically, I do the join Q&A at the end of the stream, but I think that you guys have been having some great conversations, some great back and forth about some of the topics that we've talked about within the main topic. So feel free, guys, !join. And Inks Monsters, you could be the first while we get the tier list brought up. And it looks like the question in the meantime while I get that brought up is, can the queue be anything? Do you mind expanding on that a little bit? What do you mean, Ink? All right, so I've got it pulled up, I believe. So the way that we're gonna do this, guys, is if I do have a mod in chat, for some reason, MrJagerMan sent me a tier list that is in German, I believe, and it doesn't even have A, B, C, or D for the actual rankings. So we're gonna go ahead and say red is A, orange is B, I think this is like a lighter orange is C and the yellow is D tier. There's way too many champions on this tier list, so I put just a bunch that aren't typically played on the bottom. So we're just gonna use A through D tier when we rank, guys. So mod and chat, if you want to start polls, only have them be about a minute long. Don't have the poll take too long because I don't want to be doing this tier list for like an hour or so. But yeah, so mod and chat, if we have one, 1 minute timer, and then A, B, C, D options. The first one, of course, because this is alphabetical, maybe I should save the best for last. It's Alistar. And so Eek says, as a clarification, let's see. Hold on a sec. Let's see. I'm trying to see what the rest. Okay, more cultural differences and values. Okay, that wasn't the right question. I don't know how to read. If you have the, let's see, that's not it either. Ink. So, do you mind asking that again? So, could you type in the whole question in entirety, and then we'll go ahead and start ranking up Alistar. I know where this one's going, but JagerMan, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Am I going for preference, or am I going for, like, talent?
I'm going for whatever you think. If you want to say preference, if you want it to be impact for the meta, if you want it to be impact, you know, however you want it to be. We can rank it on that scale, but what do you say?
We can say Alistar, meta-wise, probably a B tier, but I'm going to bump him up to an S+ tier because Mr. Cowman is my boy.
I would say a good Alistar is usually hard to play against, and an Alistar is one of those roles. The people that play him are very niche, and you don't really see a lot of it. I'm definitely willing to put Alistar in B or A tier. Again, remember, there's not an S tier, it's just A, B, C, or D. But it looks like chat's gonna agree with you. I would say B tier at the very least. Alistar is like, whenever I see him, he's good. Now, is he like the best champion in the game? No, but like comparatively to other champions, when I see an Alistar, I'm a little bit worried. And just because I love you, Mr. JagerMan, I'm gonna agree with chat and yourself. We'll put him at A tier. We'll put him at the A tier. Ink Monster's question is, should I get late night Waffle House and go to bed, or go to bed? Cheese is already asleep too, so I'd be all alone. Okay, Waffle House or bed? House. So Jaeger says Waffle House. I'm gonna have to disagree with him and say go to bed, get some sleep. Nothing ever good happens after 2 a.m. and nothing ever good happens when you go to Waffle House. I'm just letting you know that.
What?
Dude, go to somewhere.
So many good things happen at 2 a.m. and Waffle House is amazing.
If you want a fight to the death, if you want to be cursed at, if you want to watch an altercation, or if you feel like waiting for 40 minutes to get food that should have taken 15, go to Waffle House for sure, homie. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Ink Monsters, get some sleep.
House where I'm here.
Get some sleep.
We don't have.
Get some sleep.
We don't have Waffle here. No.
Hey, Jew boy, you can go ahead and ask your question in the meantime as well. But coming up next, we got Blitzcrank, guys. Blitzcrank, and that's so funny that, of course, alphabetically, Jaeger, the two champions that me and you play, are the two champions that are the first two up. I mean, I played Blitzcrank. It was my main back in Season 5. I think Blitzcrank was absolutely exceptional until about Season 7, until they hit him with that nerf, where his W will slow him down instead of, like, when you could run at somebody and then keep your speed up and your MOBAs would kick in or your Swifties would keep going, you wouldn't hit with that slow. I think Blitzcrank was a monster. He was a pick ban for a couple of years there. As of recently, in the last 3 or 4 seasons, he's been garbage, but Jaeger, you've seen that jungle buff on Blitzcrank, huh?
He just got buffed. He's good AP. He is always an S+ champion just because of his relevance in the game. Like, you pull that Syndra, you pull that Jinx, and you win the game. I'm gonna put him at an A.
I'm gonna put him at least B. I'll put him at B tier. I love the champion. I think that the buff's good. I mean, I played against me and Revake when we played our viewer games last night. Played a fucking Blitzcrank, a Diamond Blitzcrank jungle, and I played Hecarim, and he was absolutely all over the place, everywhere. I couldn't do anything around it, and he kept up in farm after I was like, you know what, I can't even gank because he's so strong and other lanes are so strong. I'm just gonna power farm. This man kept up with me in farm as Blitz jungle. I was baffled. Dude, I'd say like A tier, S tier as well. It looks like chat says S tier. So again, mods, we only have A, B, C, and D tier. So there is no S tier, but S tier is going to translate over into A tier. We're going to put the boys back up in there. Look at us. dude, the Blitz and our old mains or our current mains getting the love. I appreciate it. All right, next up we got Brand. You want to start or you want me to start, Mr. Jaeger?
I have very passionate feelings about
What are those?
I think that mage supports need to be banned. I'm not talking about the champion. I'm talking about the players. All mage support players banned.
Just in
that
general.
Being said, he's that being said, he's probably like B or C tier. He's not that great. I just think that players who play mage supports are bad people.
Just in general, no matter what. All right, fair enough. You say they go like kick some babies after they log offline or something? All right.
Exactly, yeah. They take the ice cream, they eat it in front of them, and then they drop kick their crib or whatever.
I would say B tier because a Brand and lane can get super far behind, but no matter what, for some reason, his damage just will never be nerfed in the mid to late game. You can still hit R, you can still be effective. I think that a Brand even getting pooped on in lane can still do decently well, so I'd say B tier. Looks like chat agrees too. Looks like chat says he's going in B tier. I agree with that, chat. I agree. And in the meantime, Jewboy asked for Jaeger. Given the amount of jungle updates, how do you think support will be affected with Scuffles spawning at 3 minutes and 30 seconds now, and thus both junglers should be done with full clear by then, as opposed to like a half a clear?
So I think that lanes are going to be very, very relevant right now because of that, and I like that, but I think that it's going for support's role. So every support should know that the jungler is going to come and gank somewhere between 315 and 345. That area, that range is super dangerous to be pushed up, but also super bad to be pushed all the way in because that allows you to be, that allows your jungler to be invaded or lose scuttle. So I think that now that it's going to be 330, you're going to see a lot more early ganks, like that early 315 gank randomly, but you're also going to see bot lane and mid lane be super impactful on rotating to that scuttle.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely going to be interesting seeing. I really like when there's small changes like that. It just keeps the game more fresh and updated, right? So, yeah, I definitely agree. We got next up is the homie Beerman Stan's favorite champion. We got Leona. So, I will go ahead and say that Leona, as compared to other states and other metas and other seasons, is super duper duper weak right now. Her couple of nerfs made her not necessarily unplayable, but you never see her in any high elo. You never see her in competitive or pro play. You never really see her even in any meta or elo whatsoever. And while, you know, she can be good with certain combinations of ADCs like Misfortune or big heavy AoE team comps, I think compared to a lot of other supports, she just doesn't offer the same amount. Once she goes all in, she's dead no matter what unless you get the kill. I would say C tier. I'd say C tier on Leona right now. What about you?
So if I was being not biased towards Alistar, I would put Leona and Alistar probably in the same category, probably in that B tier. However, Alistar is just a cooler champion, and Leona has a good lore, but Alistar's a cow, and you can't beat grazing cows. So we'll put her in the B tier.
So you think Leona is still top 50% supports right now? Really?
Yes. Because like I would say that like D tier supports are stuff like Senna and like Ashe, and like not actual supports like Pantheon and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, chat agrees with you. All right. I said C. You say, and chat says B. I'll take it. B tier it is. All right, guys. And Crossflamebow asked the question, how do you feel about Rel knowing that Leona is a less complex version of Rel?
I think Rel is Rel is the niche pick that everyone like. I believe that Rel fits into the category of you either one-trick her and you're very good at her, or you don't one-trick her and you are inting away your game. Because Rel is very, very relevant and very impactful if played well, but is one of the champions that you can just like if I'm Alistar and I land my WQ combo, I'm gonna be relevant. if you're Rel and you press that jumpy jump and she jumps into the air and slams into the enemy tower and does nothing and presses R on no one, it dies, you're useless.
Yeah, and so what you're saying is it matters how relevant she is. See what I did there? See what I did there?
Bam.
Okay. S tier dad joke. I know. Thanks, guys. You don't even have to tell me. All right. And by the way, guys, if you're wondering, all the champions that I just put the champions either that I didn't think get played at all, aren't very important, are so off meta right now that it wouldn't matter. So you see the people that we're not going to go over. It's going to be Shin, Rakan, Bard, Galio, Karma, Janna, Braum, Tahm Kench, Taric, and Zyra. Obviously I'm not trying to target or trigger anybody by not having those champions be ones that we rank. I know all of them are in the lower 50 percentile played, and most of them are in the lower 50 percentile of what you would be ranking compared to the other supports. We just don't have time to get to them. Next up we have
one sec. While Moosey is not targeting, bye Bard players, I hate you. Okay, bye.
Dude, you never see him though. I never see him anymore, man. I haven't seen a Bard in like 60 games at least.
I dislike Bard more. Anybody who plays Bard, I know you are like you like throw sand at hobos. Like
All right, well, you and your hobo abuse. We got Lulu up next. And I will say, dude, Lulu is either A or B tier. A or B tier easily. Lulu can do so many things. Lulu, her polymorph can absolutely change a fight. Her ultimate can change a fight. Her picks, I believe, is the little insect thing, can have such far range. Her shield, she can heal. Like, she can just do everything. I think Lulu is comfortably A or B tier. What do you think?
Okay, so this is going to be our big disagreement. And this might be because I haven't played for the last patch. However, I know that Enchanter supports are struggling. While it's not like, it's kind of like the low averages and the high average, I would put her in like that C tier right now because she's only relevant with 1 or 2 champions, C or D. Specifically because, like, if you don't have that Kog'Maw, if you don't have Vayne, if you can't make someone unkillable, you are absolutely worthless. You don't do anything, you die really quickly.
But you can make any carry in the mid to late game that much more impactful. And chat's agreeing with me. So what? I'm taking Lulu in the A tier, MrJagerMan. All right, chat. We got next up at Ink Monsters. Go a Fred. You're not a Fred. You're an Ink Monsters. Go ahead and ask your question at any time if you would like, please. We got Brandy, Miss UV Unicorn, who is not here right now, and either thankfully or unthankfully we have Jaeger in the purple outline to be able to replace her, but we have Brandy's one-trick champion in the Lux support. MrJagerMan, what do you think about Lux support?
I think that she's somewhere in that like B tier, really high C tier, lowest of the low A tier, probably somewhere in that B tier area.
I would say C tier strictly because a Lux can get so abused, and no offense, Brandy, I don't know, she might be listening to the podcast or outside the door right now listening to me talk, but a Lux can be targeted so hard, so abused by so many jugglers and support combinations that if you don't have a stable early game, Lux's damage is not like the damage of Brand. She cannot have a pop-off team fight in the same effect like a far behind AP champion can have. Like even say like a Xerath or something like a Vel'Koz. Like she just doesn't have the reliable damage and she's easily abusable. So I'd say C tier, maybe even lower. But I'd be interested to see what chat says on top of that. All
Due to the fact that there is no S tier, I could see C tier, but
So chat's saying B tier. You could agree with B tier, Jaeger. If chat and you say that, I'd say lowest of low B tier, but would you be comfortable with B tier as well?
I would be comfortable with low B tier. I think that that's fair.
All right, guys. With the assumption that this is the lowest B tier I could put Lux at, possibly in imagination right now, we're going to go ahead and go low B tier. In the meantime, Ink Monsters, question was, will we get another JagerMan ASMR segment? The populace is demanding it. Is that really your question you queued up for, Ink? And by the way, didn't I say go to sleep? You're supposed to either be asleep or at Waffle House right now. Come on, why are you trying to get another Jaegerman ASMR in here?
I think Moosey Man was not appreciative of it. Maybe in my own stream.
all right, whatever. I do have an ASMR redemption for my subathon starting tomorrow, Jaeger. So I don't remember how many subs it is, but at one point you can actually enter an entire story, and I have to read it in ASMR. It can be like a 5-minute dialogue. I mean, obviously I'm gonna cap it at like nothing longer than 10 minutes, but I mean, I've got a channel point redemption too, so maybe I'm just being a little bit jealous right now. Maybe I just don't want it to be all about your ASMR and about my potential ASMR in the future. That's fair.
Listen, if you ever want me to help, I'm happy to be a part of that.
How are you gonna help me do ASMR? Are you gonna coach me up on the octaves and the tones that I'm supposed to do, or the emphasis and the structure?
If chat demands it and there's like an extra 5 subs on top of whatever your thing is, I'll come in here and do it for you. All right? We're here to get you more money.
Okay, dude. I'm the hashtag sellout, bro. I'm just trying to entertain people. You stop it. All right. The next up support is Morgana. I would say, before even anybody begins to talk about Morgana, I believe that she overall is a B tier champion, but I believe in the right hands, she's an S tier champion if we had an S tier, and I believe in the wrong hands, she's a D tier champion. I mean, it's just so polarizing for me. I can see Morganas absolutely carry games, but I can see Morganas that, I think people use Morgana more as the champion that like, oh hey, that champion has a hook, or oh hey, that champion has a point and click stun. I'm gonna use my black shield perfectly. I'm gonna protect my ADC and myself, and if they're bad at it, they never time it out right, so it doesn't even matter that Black Shield exists on that champion. But if it's by a good player, Black Shield completely changes the game. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I will start with what I agree with you on. I think that a bad Morgana is fairly bad if she misses her Qs and
and her Q,
like can't do Black Shield.
Yeah.
I think that she has the most broken skill set on the planet. I think that this isn't even a contest. I would rather have a 200 kill Azir come and one-shot me going pure tank than ever play against that demon champion I've ever S times 10 tier. Dumb champion.
All right, well, while Jaeger goes to a therapist and works on his PTSD, I'm going to go ahead and say, chat, split it down 50-50, B and C. I'll go ahead and put her, if Lux is at the bottom of B tier, I'm going to say Morgana's the top of B tier. I don't think she's the highest grade support because MrJagerMan has to take 2 fucking chill pills and call me in the morning, but I still think she's a pretty good champion. I'll put her top B tier.
Can I give one justification why, bro?
All right, I feel like there's like 10 you're gonna give me in a matter of like 5 minutes on a rant, but just give me one.
I'll give you one.
Give me one.
Her Black Shield, statistically, for every engaged support, can block their entire kit up to level 11.
Again, if used correctly.
Yes, if used correctly, but the damage that the Black Shield does will block every engaged support's kit up to level 11 if she doesn't put any ability, except for one ability into it.
All right. So the tiebreaker, if anybody else in chat wants to say between B or C, I like that idea, Richard. The tiebreaker. Let's not do tiebreakers because I think that we're getting pretty close. We're over the 3-hour mark, and man, I never thought this was going to go this long. But we are saying B tier. All right, cool. Let's have that be the only tiebreaker, please, sir. Thank you very much, though. That's a good idea if we had more time to be able to, because we might have quite a few ties during this situation. All right, guys. Next up, Nami. Nami. Go ahead and start, MrJagerMan. What do you think?
I mean, she's pretty easy to die. She has a lot of relevance, but Enchanter supports are slowly turning out of meta. Maybe like a low B, high C-ish.
I would agree. I would say C tier for Nami. I mean, I guess nobody wants to comfortably put any of these supports in C tier. What, are all supports broken, guys? I mean, I guess I did say at the very beginning of this, I put all of the lower, like, used lower caliber supports in the bottom tier, and we're not even going to go over those supports. So I guess I kind of did to myself. But I mean, I'd say Nami's C tier, if not D tier. I mean, obviously Nami Lucian is broken as shit, but not a lot of champions function in the way Lucian does. Maybe Draven, maybe one or two others, but no other like ADCs are hyper snowballers in the lane where Nami's a little extra effect with their electrocute proc, and I don't even think that the electrocute procs on her W anymore like it used to. But her nerf definitely made her in a worse state right now than even what she was when it was broken as hell. Nami's C tier, maybe even D tier. So let's see what chat says.
I could agree with C. She's just not super relevant. And Nami Lucian got nerfed.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. All right. C tier. I appreciate it. Chat. I mean, hopefully, chat, we're not influencing. Hopefully, we're not just saying, hey, you better put somebody in a low tier or not. But if that's what we're all on board with, chat, I see you out here. I see your support ranking abilities, and I like it. All right. Next up, we got Nautilus. Next up. I'll let you start again on this one. I really want to start on this one, but I know we both play him. So what do you think about Nautilus?
I would put him in that like high B, low A tier. I don't think he's the best support, but I think his hitbox is absolutely insane. Has any pull is just crazy. Yeah, probably high B, low A.
I agree. I think Nautilus just, I mean, obviously, again, I'm sorry if I just spaced this. I don't know how I couldn't remember this from 10 seconds ago if you said this. Did you say something about his hitbox on Q?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, his Q hitbox, how they have not nerfed that is beyond me. But like, I feel like Nautilus's tankiness, especially since you can max W on some builds, and some comps. I think Misty just had a really good point in chat that a lot of supports depend on the comps they're playing on to their effectiveness, which is definitely true in a lot of scenarios. But with Nautilus, I think he's just such a reliable engager, and I think engaged supports and tank supports have been so meta for so long. I think his ultimate, his point and click stun on his passive, he just has so many of the things that supports have been for so long, and even in competitive play and high elo play where supports have no levels to them, and Nautilus can still do what he needs to do without having levels compared to like any kind of mages or enchanters. You know what I mean? Like I would say definitely high B, low A with Nautilus as well. Let's see what chat says. Yeah. Which is why I put him above Blitz. Yes, and we only said Blitz because he was my old main champion for like a year, Misty. I would agree with you.
I think Blitz can be. Blitz is a really high tier champion. The reason why I think Nautilus isn't that good is his mobility. Blitz has a lot of mobility. While Nautilus has an OP hitbox, Blitz has more range on his ability. And I think that Nautilus is what I call a pseudo or false tank because he looks tankier than he is.
That's true too, because when you get behind as Nautilus, you can definitely start getting destroyed and you think you're stronger than you are. So I've fallen to that as well. I really like Blitz's passive as well too. And Blitz could be better in like a solo queue situation because with Nautilus you still need teamwork and gameplay. But with Blitz, if you catch somebody out, I would like to think even silver players can all just delete that person. But you know, you never know. All right, guys, we have, if you guys know the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Coach Pike out there, you know, we have a cowbell on, well, you can't see it now because the TV's covering it up, but we do have a cowbell on here for MrJagerMan in the background, but we also got a shout out to Mr. Coach Pike on this overlay in the background, but we got Pike. What do you think about Pike, Mr. Jaeger?
I feel like right now he's not good, but he's gonna get better. I think because Pike really does pretty well with engage supports, because like if I try to engage on Alistar, if he dashes back, not only do I miss my engage, but he stuns me, and that's very similar. He has a lot of disengage as well. So while I think right now he could be like low B, high C, and not being relevant, I think that as engage supports become more popular, because it was enchanter meta for like 2 seasons, now it's starting to come into tank or engage support meta again. I'm gonna give him that, like, I'll give him the B tier, expecting him to go into A.
Remember when Pyke mid was a thing? God, that was so oppressive. I mean, I honestly think Pyke's a feast or famine, and it's obviously like if you aren't like Pyke's pretty high skill cap, to be honest with you. He, as much as he thinks he's straightforward as the other hook-based champions like Thresh, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, he's way more particular. He's way more susceptible to misplaying, and since his nerfs, he hasn't been as predominant. I agree with you. I think he's probably going to get some buffs here in the near future, just because his playstyle is so interesting, fascinating to play, and fun to play. I can't believe that he's been down for so long, but in his current state, I'd say C tier. I would stay C tier. I don't ever see him perform well. Chat split down the middle, 50-50 B C tier. I'll put him ahead of Nabi, but I still think that he's C tier. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm going to disagree with it, but I understand where it's coming from. I think that he's a very high skill cap, which keeps him looking worse than a decent support.
Fair.
Is gonna be better than a decent support other champions.
That's agreeable too. All right. We got Senna. Next, guys. We got Senna.
D.
What?
D,
yes, now because of the nerfs. I'll tell you what, before the nerfs earlier in the season, she was arguably high B, low A tier. But yeah, she just got nerfed in the ground so hard that she's just not viable anymore. There's a reason you never see her anymore. I think somebody mentioned the Tahm Kench Senna combination, but yeah, we're only going over just supports in general, and that actually got nerfed, and it's not as strong as it used to be either. Yeah. Senna, I'd say low C, high D tier. Senna's just in a really bad spot right now. Until they buff her, I'm not going to see her played a lot. She's never played at any high level pro caliber. She's not in high elo. I mean, she probably has less than what, a 5% pick rate in high elo as well. I mean, yeah. So, fun fact though.
I just think she's not relevant.
Fun fact though, one of the people that we stayed with at TwitchCon, MrJagerMan, was a dude named Ioki. And he was a former rank 1 Senna player, and even he'll tell you that she's terrible now, so, yeah.
Aoki's good. He's a good player. I've played against him a few times. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I carried him in beer pong. Aoki, if you ever see this, I carried your ass in beer pong. You remember that? Dude, I carried Body even harder, but then I carried Aoki as well.
I am king, and I slap at beer pong. I've never lost.
Oh, dude, I destroy you, bro. Get out of here.
Let's go.
All right. I'll play some virtual beer pong. Maybe we should have had that be something on the podcast. All right, guys. Where is in D tier? I'd agree, chat. Good look. All right, guys. We have Sona. Sona is up next, and I will tell you this. She used to be in a great place, but she's still in a good place. I think scaling late game Sona is so ridiculous with teams that know how to play with it, that her heals and her constant spamming of heals, and then the ability for her, like in lane, she's okay. Like I never can get accustomed to how long her range is on her point and click ability, but like in lane, she's okay. Not great, not good in the early game, but in mid to late game, I think she scales so well that even if she's not ahead, her ultimate's pretty effective. Her heals are good. I mean, what do you think, Jaeger? I'd say probably solid B tier.
I'm going to put her in C tier because most games don't get delayed. Too many people FF15, FF20, and at that point, she's just not relevant. If she ever gets behind, it's so hard for her to get to that late game to come back. If you get a Sona that can get into that late game, she turns monster, but I think that most healing as well champions are all going to be C tier right now.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that as well. So I'd like to see what chat said. I can definitely see that be a point. If we're looking at Pyke to be like, hey, you don't really see him as a good player overall because he's only played in higher elos with higher skill caps where he can be, shown as how good he is. In the general sense, that's why we put him at C. So in the general sense, since you don't see Sona scale and have the ability to scale, I'd say C tier is pretty comfortable to put her as well. And it looks like chat agrees. All right, Sona on the C tier. Speaking of healing, the next healer up on the list, we've got the the legendary healer herself, Miss Soraka. What do you think, Mr. Jaeger? Soraka.
Soraka's okay right now. She's tankier than most healers. Low B, high C. A little bit better than Pyke and Nami and Sona. She's a little bit better in that regard, but probably somewhere in the Lux area.
Yeah, and she's one of those champions that's really good in low elo, really bad in high elo. Like, in high elo during team fights, people are going to know to focus her, people are going to know to get healing reduction, people are going to know that you have to get into the back line. You're not killing the ADC, you're not killing the assassin, you got to kill the Soraka. In low elo, if people don't realize that, Soraka's going to stand back, heal everybody, and it's going to be good game just because people aren't going to realize that she's got to get taken care of. Especially if you have a good peeling front line in lane for her in these team fights, you know, and you don't have somebody that's like able to get into the back line through the peel, that she's just gonna live regardless. And I think it's so toxic when she goes Warmogs and shit. I hate that. I would say I'd agree with you. I'd say low B or high C. I wouldn't say that she's any better than, like, you know, Leona or anything, but I think she's better than Pyke and Nami. So people are saying B tier. I'd say low B tier as well. I agree with that.
I will disagree with Jeebs when he says Soraka is better than Sona. A good Soraka is better than a good Sona. I think a good Sona, like, high B. A good Soraka, probably high B. But like,
I'd actually agree with Jeebs, is what you call him. I'd agree with him. I've seen, like, I think that the one thing that stands beyond all on a good Soraka with a good Sona is Soraka's silence. A good Soraka that knows where to put that silence, especially for champions that when they're displaced, they have to go to a certain area. Like, dude, Jarvan cannot play against a Soraka. She will silence your EQ and not let you ultimate. You'll get deleted, bro. Like, a good Soraka will, like, be able to catch assassins that need to be able to use their cooldowns and destroy them. Like, I have to agree with them. I think a good Soraka is better.
Fair.
I would definitely agree with that. All right, we got, dude, okay, so there's two champions I left in here since Vel'Koz wasn't a champion that I could even choose. I guess anybody that's a Vel'Koz lover, you guys got out lucky this time. But Swain, I fucking hate this champion so much, bro. He's had one of the highest win rates in ADC as well as support in high to mid to high elo almost this entire season. It's unreal how strong he is in lane. It's unreal how strong he scales. His E can travel so far. It can go through minions. He has a resettable ultimate. He's a tank. He's a mage. I hate this champion, dude. I gotta put him at A tier. I think he's been at A tier for this entire season. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's not even just being biased. I think that's facts.
I agree. I wouldn't put Vel'Koz or like Xerath at A tier, but Swain's just so all around a dog.
Agreed.
I hate it.
I agree. I wouldn't put Vel'Koz and Xerath up there either, like, unless I was being biased, but I think factually with my bias as well, Swain's A tier. I think he definitely is. I'd be interested if Chad thinks differently, and if you think differently, you just haven't been playing against any Swains lately, bro, because that shit is a menace, dude. It's such a menace. I don't know, dude. I'd say that Swain, I'm gonna be honest with you, Swain, if I ever see a Swain, I already get worried. Because then not only that, but then Swain is like a niche champion as well, and people that play him are usually pretty good at him. So it looks like it's a little split.
My rage.
Yeah, it's a little split, but people are saying A tier. Hey, chat. Hey, I like it, dude. Chat. Okay, I see you guys out there. You got good heads on your shoulder out there. All right. Next up, I'm gonna put him in front of everybody too, just so it's not to be mistaken that this man is number one on this list right now. Next, we have my favorite support. I know that I gave a little bit of bias to Blitzcrank because I one-tricked him, but ever since I switched over to other champions, ever since then, Thresh is my favorite player. He's not great in this meta right now. He was quite a bit at the end of last season, and he's used sparingly in professional settings or high elos even throughout this season. But what do you think on that? I'll let you start on Thresh. What do you think?
I have a weird double-edged sword when it comes to Thresh because I feel like he is the hardest of the hook champs. He is the most difficult hook champ out of Pyke, Nautilus.
Oh, even Pyke. Oh, okay. Interesting. More difficult than Pyke.
Yes. I think he's the hardest, but he is the absolute most impactful hook champ. in the game. He has too much. He has so much CC. He has so much ability to just hook someone, press W, have someone W in, go towards the hook, get them from tier 1 tower on your side to tier 2 on that side. A good Thresh is a god tier Thresh. A bad Thresh is absolute trash. So I have mixed feelings. I'd put him in the B tier right now.
I would, so if we have Blitzcrank in A tier, I think a little bit of it because I was getting super excited and chat was hyping me up as well. I don't think Blitzcrank belongs in A tier. Honestly, I'm going to put him at the end of A tier just to make no mistake about that. And I would also agree that I think a better Thresh is the best hook-based champion in the game as well. His utility on his ultimate, slow, his lantern, his flay, to be able to hook out a champion gives the same utility almost as a Blitzcrank does because of the stun duration. I agree, man. And Thresh is so niche as well. Objectively, I do think that Blitzcrank is better in lower elos to mid elos, and Thresh is better in higher elos or people that put more time on him. So if we're gonna say Blitz is a low A tier, I would say at the very least Thresh is high B tier, and it looks like chat says B tier too. So I'll put Thresh behind Morgana. I'll put him behind Morgana in front of Nautilus.
I think that Blitz is so high because he's so easy to play. He has a lot of mobility. He has a very, very, very impactful kit. And he's easy to play, so he will always be S tier. It doesn't matter if they nerf everything about him, he will always be S tier. Thresh just can be so useful, or so useless, but also just the most impactful. I know 2 high diamond, low challenger Threshes, and anybody who is low elo that likes Thresh just plays Blitzcrank.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah, I agree. He's more reliable. And then just that one Q can just change a team fight. You know what I mean? That's all you gotta do. Just hit a Q. Yeah. All right. So coming up next, and I know Xerath we talked about earlier. I think Xerath is at least in the conversation. I mean, everybody's probably sitting here like, dude, you don't have Karma in there. You don't have, like, Taric. I mean, I'd say maybe Rakan. I mean, I don't know. I think Xerath is probably paid more than like a Shin or a Galio or a Zyra or Braum. But I don't like Xerath, and I really think that he's a menace in certain games in bot lane. His long range skill shots, his scaling, his cooldowns, his low mana usage. I mean, I dislike playing Xerath, but like you said, I don't dislike playing him like more than like a Swain. I honestly think even Vel'Koz is better than Xerath in support. What do you think though?
Hey, so I think DB, please, for my viewer who is a one trick million mastery point Xerath, I'm sorry. I think that Xerath is probably the worst mage support. I think that Lux, yeah, he has too high of cooldowns. Like, he's very pokey. I hate playing against him because he's annoying. But like unless he can steal kills and really impact that way, like Lux, you might not like her, but she can impact with her Q. She's so useful. Xerath's stun is so low. His poke is relevant, but it's just not that relevant unless he's fed, and then you're taking kills away from other players. I'd put him in a high C, honestly.
High C?
Mm-hmm.
Like the drink, high C. I'd put him C tier as well. Just because I don't like him doesn't mean he's good. Chat saying D.
I'm okay with D, honestly. I think that he's a very weak champion.
I'll put him in the highest D. I'll put him before Senna. I think he's better than Senna at the very least. All right, guys. I fucking hate this champion so much. If this is the one champion that I wish that would just, like, people have asked me that. I've actually had this be a Discord question as well that I've answered through and through. Somebody asked me if I could delete one champion out of the game. It's this champion, and it's Yuumi. It's fucking Yuumi, guys. I mean, I'm gonna channel my rage in productive ways and try to put the nice way to say it without just trashing the champion, so I'll let you go first. But what do you think about Yuumi, dude?
Listen, I don't care what anyone says. I like Yuumi as a champion, but I do like Yuumi as a champion. I don't like how where she is in the meta. I don't like how people play her right now. I'm gonna give her that D tier currently. I think that I would love to see Yumi in a good light. Not OP, because you can't really have an OP Yumi, or you get champions like Hecarim just dominating the world, Fiora, Camille, but like putting her in a half decent spot is really hard. But I feel like right now she's just dang near irrelevant and useless. And she kind of has to be, because if she isn't, she makes one champion god and unkillable. So I'm gonna put her D.
I would say comfortably. I cannot put her anything lower than B. I really can't. I mean, I know we're only 2 champions away, and this is the last segment, and we've been live for almost 3.5 hours. So by no means do I want to get into a heated debate at this moment in time. I might another time on stream, Jaeger. I might have to bring this up to you, but there's no fucking way she's D tier. She's gotta be no lower than B. She can empower any champion. You don't have to have that much skill to play her. She can heal champions. She can do it all. She can stun champions. She's the best healer in the game. You can't change my mind that she's a better, more impactful healer than Soraka. I hate this champion. It's got to be B tier. All right, so Richard, I actually do want a tiebreaker on this one because 4 different people voted on 4 different ways. So I want a difference. I want an A tier and a D tier, Richard. I want a tiebreaker with the options of A and D, because Jaeger's saying A, D, and I'm saying either B or A tier. So Jaeger, one more time while we're getting the arguments, while another poll goes up for A or D tier. What are your arguments for D tier beyond that?
I'm gonna say that she's D tier because the way that people play her just isn't effectful. Like, I say that people put her at A purely because they hate her. Because they've played with a Hecarim that becomes unkillable and runs over the world. But I would say, given her stats right now, she just got nerfed. All healing got nerfed because of healing reduction, just got it and getting buffed. I just don't think that she's as impactful as she could have been. Like, she right now is in the worst spot she's ever been. She has been S+ tier horrifying, but right now she's not good.
So, and hey, Cushy, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate you, and welcome in, guys. I would say that, okay, so you're using the representation of Hecarim, but dude, if you take out the Hecarim and you put like 20 other champions in there, Udyr, Nasus, like I could literally go on and on. I mean, I would have to bring up a list of champions that would be like, hey, like, take out the word Hecarim and insert this champion. It's going to be just as impactful, just as annoying if this person has like a 5-kill lead, right? I mean, it's so insane how much she can just make a carry, or even like somebody that's mid in the middle of the pack, but a hard scaler, or someone that can just run forward and kill people with ease. Like, she's just so good at that. It's crazy how, like, you see it in high elo as well. We're not talking about high elo, we're also talking about low elo. All right, so wait, so if 53% said A. Okay, wait, how do we have 50?
No, fair. We had 95 people.
Wait, dude, people were just spamming votes. I was like, how did we get 50 votes on that, dude? What's going on here? All right, so it looked like it was even super duper debated, and people wanted to really make it a point between the two. But A prevails, so she's going A tier, boys. Thank you very much.
She's the most hated champion. That doesn't make her good.
Nope. She's A tier. Thank you, chat, for confirming not only my biases but just the facts of the everyday situation. I appreciate you. Love you, cat. Love you, cat. I meant to say chat, but she is a cat, so love you, cat. Love you, chat. Kisses. All right, guys. The last champion in the tier list, quite and per se, one of the last things that I get to talk about with this lovely man on the right is Zilean. Zilean in the support round. This isn't Zilean mid. This isn't Zilean Bjergsen. This is Zilean support on an everyday champion, everyday person playing this champion. What do you think, Jaeger? Zilean.
I'm going to cite I'm going to cite all credentials that I have. I'm a longtime player. I'm a very good support player. Zilean is the most slept on A tier champion in the game. She's not played or he's not played, but he is slept on because he turns any game that goes past 20 minutes into a 6v5, period. The most slept on, but he's boring. He's the most boring champion. That's why he's slept on. He's boring and annoyingly like sleeper champion. The one of the best supports.
I'd have to agree. I would put him no lower than B tier. I'll tell you, like, I would say there's only a few champions with a few impactful abilities like Zillion's ultimate, man. Like, it really can. It just, the dynamic of low elo, the dynamic of even professional play, if you guys see any kind of high elo gameplay from this champion. And honestly, speeds and like, what do you want in a support? You want healing? While you can't do that, you want a stun, you want some kind of either shield, you want to speed up or slow down, and you want some kind of survivability. Zillion does 4 out of those 6 things better than any support. I mean, it looks like chat's gonna say for the very last pick, they've agreed with us on almost every single champion. Chat's saying that he's like C tier.
Gonna make an enemy out of all of chat right now. Chat, you're all low elo and bad.
Damn.
A tier.
Chat, we had so much fun tonight. What the fuck, chat? Come on, dude. Make sure to follow me and JagerMan, by the way. Fuck you guys, but we love you. All right. We'll put him at C tier. I get it. I see you, chat. All right. So that pretty much wraps up the podcast with MrJagerMan. We have talked a lot about League of Legends. We have talked a lot about our place in the meta. We've talked a lot about toxicity. We've talked about NA. We've talked about supports that we both play and the viability. We didn't get the chance to talk about everything, though. We didn't get to talk about items or build pass or strategies, but you know what? That might be for another day. There's just so much fun in League of Legends. Yeah, I mean, once you pop, you just can't stop. Pringles of video games, but we have actually ran out of time for this podcast. MrJagerMan, it's been a pleasure. If you guys don't know, !guest will bring you to the link. You'll be able to click that. You'll be able to bring over yourself to his channel, and you'll be able to put that mouse clicker on the follow button and go ahead and follow him, guys. I would really appreciate it. This guy is not only a super cool person and a great streamer, great League of Legends player, but he's one of the people that I confide in the most. I really, really respect his outlook on the platform in general, and I just really appreciate him as a friend. So if you guys could, I would appreciate you for that as well. MrJagerMan, tell us a little bit about what we can expect from your stream, what we can expect for the future, and if they do click that follow button, what they should be seeing in the future.
Yeah, I am fairly known for a pretty sussy community. We try not to be super toxic, but we definitely have some interesting discussions because I do have an open floor policy when it comes to discussions. As long as you're respectful, I like to talk about it. If it ever breaches not respectful, I play TFT, I play League of Legends, fairly high elo on both of them. I'm looking to implement as we go forward a few other games that I feel confident in being able to be informative and entertaining, as well as we host like viewer anime nights sometimes because my chat is trying to get me to be more of a weeb. So join me in my progression into the weebality world.
The weebality, eh? Okay. Well, hey, MrJagerMan, if there's one thing that's League of Legends related before we get going, what do you want to leave the chat with as an overview or the best piece of advice or a little bit of a meme before we take off here?
Yeah, 3 things. Mute all chat, improve on yourself by looking within yourself, and you're all wrong, Zillion's dumb.
Okay, well said from the cowman himself, guys. I've had a fantastic time. This will conclude episode 3 of Hooves, Horns, and Hearsay. We have potentially a surprise guest for the next time around, but we haven't locked it in. Make sure if you don't follow the Discord, you can go follow that Discord, and you can see and keep up on the date of who's going to be in the Cool Guy Corner that we do on Wednesdays, who's going to be on the podcast on Thursdays. Make sure that you stay tuned about 5 hours earlier from if today was 5 hours backwards tomorrow at the same time, I'm going to be starting my 2-year subathon that also celebrates my birthday that happened on Monday. I hope you guys can stop by. We got a bunch of prizes. We got a bunch of fun things. I'll be posting that announcement on my Discord, as well as messaging it to the homies to make sure they all know. The subathon went about 7 or 8 days last time. I'm going to cap it at 4 days this time around because your boy Moosey Man, that year older, just did me in too much. I'm too boomer. I can't do it, guys. I can't do it. So make sure you stay tuned to that. And I'm also going to be participating in the Beer Man Stand and Swagner Sub Wars. It's going to be popping. It's going to be lit. It's going to be all the things that they say. So guys, I had a fantastic time. Again, one more shout out to MrJagerMan. Guys, make sure in the meantime you hit that ! raid, or you just copy and paste the message I just put in chat. We are going to be raiding Olivia. We got Olivia in the raid setup. She is a new homie. She's been relatively unfamiliar with the Cool Guy Club until the last couple of weeks, but she's always coming in here with the love, with the support, with the lurk, and you know what? The Cool Guy Club likes to pay that shit back, and that's just how we do it here. So come in with that raid, get her with the Cool Guy messages. The Cool Guys arrived, and I appreciate you all. Much love. I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you stay safe, make sure you stay healthy, but make sure that you guys stay cool. I'll see y'all later. Peace. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll be uploading every week, and everything is live streamed from my Twitch channel. Check the information down below in the description. Stay cool.